What's up, YouTube? What's up, gentlemen? What's up, ladies and gentlemen? We got a full house in here today in the 307 Project studio. We're coming at you live on YouTube, but we got Chad, your host, in here. We got the tech guy back here behind it. Y'all know. You've never seen the tech guy before. He doesn't have a camera trained on him. And we've got Sherbet Green over here on the couch. And then we've got Miss Brooke. Oh, my gosh. Brooke kind of changed it up a little bit, son.
Switching it up.
That's where Brooke usually sits on the podcast, we got a special guest for you guys today, Evan Slaughter, Fit to Serve. We've spent all morning out doing some fun projects with Evan. It was really cool for me today to actually get to do some comedy type content, right? It was really cool for me to be able to get to watch you work, Evan, and to see how your mind ticks, how how you flow. And dude, you're the real deal, man. You're the real deal. I was wondering, because I'm a big fan of Evan's, all right? I found Evan on Instagram, I don't know, it's been months ago. Somehow, all right, I found this dude, and his stuff, like, stood out. It is unbelievably funny. Like, it will make your day. It's so good that I immediately then had to go and share it with Brooke, my wife. And, of course, she loves comedy-type content over everything else. That's her lane, comedy and animals. And then she fell in love with Evan. We've been following him for a long time, watching his stuff. And it's always intriguing to me because you think somebody that's this funny, somebody that's this good at what they do, they've got to be acting. He ain't acting, man. He's the real deal, dude. Like, he showed up this morning and it's like, okay, this is legit, man. And so thank you for being on the podcast.
Man, I'm honored to be here. I don't know how to take that, if that's a compliment or not.
Big time.
I'm just kidding. That's how I do it. That's how I'm comfortable making these videos, man. And I think that's why they have success, is because I don't have to act, through that process. So I appreciate it being here and looking forward to spending more time with you guys.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun this morning. And I was glad the tech guy did pretty good this morning. He's been slipping here lately, dude. I know, Chilla, you don't know what's been going on around here. You live kind of way up north and you kind of do your own thing during the week, run the store, and the tech guy has been slipping this past week or
Big
so.
Time.
It's turkey season, and he's been doing this turkey hunting thing. The Joker has missed phone calls that have been on the schedule. Completely forgot about them.
Chad missed that one too.
Well, yeah, but I'm not the tech guy. It's not my job to remember phone calls.
I wasn't aware of this. I'm glad you're making me aware. Go ahead. What else?
So he missed that. Just the other day, him and I had a kind of a deal, a money thing worked out, and we had squared it away. Just this kind of money deal between us. We had squared it away months ago. Well, he's getting ready to paint his truck, and he sends me a text, and he says, "Hey, Bubba, can you bring me that money you owe me? Because I'm getting ready to buy the paint stuff for my truck." I said, "Well, I'll bring you some money if you want me to, but I thought we were squared up on that kind of months ago."
Mind you, he did still also owe me money, but just not that.
This Joker was trying to dun me for something I'm talking like thousands of dollars that we squared up on a long time ago.
And here I thought Blake was a good guy just from meeting him this morning and all the work he did on the videos this morning. I thought he was a good guy.
Yeah, he'll trick you.
Yeah, I'll show you real quick.
Wow.
You better watch it.
He usually is, man, but I'm going to tell you, turkey season does something to that Joker.
Yeah, I ain't studying this work stuff this turkey season. I mean, all this stuff just kind of had to go on hold because, you gonna have to learn something. it's turkey season, and old boy got plans in the morning. And this weekend, I ain't gonna be able to do it. But when I get back, I'm gonna have to go turkey hunting. You know, this work stuff's got to pause.
He'll probably have some collapsible shotgun in his backpack on the basic course this weekend.
Or I might twist my ankle tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, me and Chad we'll deliberate on what you're gonna face, the consequences you're gonna face due to that. Because
Listen, y'all can't deliberate on nothing because I'll shut this unit down.
no, man,
It's already shutting down.
the last 2 months you've already been on half pay and extra duty, so we'll just carry that over to the next month.
Half month's pay times 2.
Yeah.
And
well,
extra
I'm
duty.
past my probationary period, so y'all either got to fire me or whatever.
Evan, I don't know, in the military, I don't know if you ever went through the UCMJ process, but I did. And I know what it feels like to get half month's pay times 2 taken plus extra duty. Blake don't know what that feels like yet, man.
I too was a part of the UCMJ process. I must say, pulled a lot of extra duty. They were trying real hard to not cut my pay in half, but ultimately I pushed them to cut my pay in half one time. So I'm glad I didn't lose rank though.
Yeah. My mentor, my SEAL mentor, Frank Cutler. He told me before I ever joined the Navy, he said, "Dude, you're not a real SEAL unless you get to go through that UCMJ process." And that's just part of it, man. You got to learn what that feels like. The good thing about it is if Blake keeps slipping and he gets half month's pay times 2 taken, that half month's pay that goes and it's going to be divvied out between Chili and I.
Sweet.
So
Look, Chad went to calling everybody. He couldn't get me on the phone the other day. And
that's another thing. He won't answer my phone calls.
Cass said he was panicking. She said he was calling everybody in the family. Nobody would answer. You know how he never answers anybody, but nobody would answer him. And she said, man, he was freaking out. She said, I've never seen him like that. I don't know what was wrong with him.
Well,
yeah, screw you guys, man. Y'all know I don't have to answer when y'all call me, but when I call you, you're obligated to answer. Chili.
what? Why are you telling me?
I've called you 3 times this week, man, and you don't answer your phone. You call me back 10 minutes later. You got to tighten up on that. Look, all of y'all are slipping. All of y'all are slipping.
No, I had phone malfunctions.
Look, I don't want to hear your excuses.
Chili didn't answer me yesterday, and he called me back at 8 o'clock, and he said, hey, I hope this is a good time. And then he just rolled right into what he said, what he had to say. I thought, well, I guess it don't matter if it was or not.
He just threw that in there as a respectful measure, right?
Man, I've been wheeling and dealing lately, so.
All right. This episode is brought to you by our Patreon members. If you guys don't know about Patreon, it's a private community that we have here at 3 of 7 Project. Patreon is kind of like it's an app that you download on your phone. You can join our page 3 of 7 Project on Patreon, and you can support the podcast. You can support everything that we do here at 3 of 7 Project. As a matter of fact, every one of you guys who contribute on Patreon, you are a huge part of enabling us to do everything that we do. All right? You're a huge part of that. And so over there, we put out as much extra content as we can possibly produce. So we have our range series on there, which is about 90-something minutes worth of content out on the range. If you guys like to shoot and you want some good lessons on the fundamentals of marksmanship and gear and that type of stuff, you can access all that on Patreon at any time if you join us. We do a live show 3 Sundays a month called Resurrected, which is probably my favorite thing that I do. It's a Bible-based content where we get to have live conversation, Q&A, and all that good stuff with everybody on Patreon. I've got the Nuff Said podcast over there, and it's just a really cool place for us to communicate with each other, for you guys to comment with us and each other, and we're not limited by the the social media algorithms. It's not a fan page, it's actually a community. So Patreon, you guys are what makes all this happen. We couldn't put the time into the podcast here if it weren't for you guys. So thank you for supporting us. And if you want to join us over on Patreon, we'll attach a link to Patreon in the description of this episode. So if you're too dumb to figure out where the description of this episode is, then you probably don't even need to be on Patreon. But if you're smart enough to find that, we're going to make it easier for you, and you can just click on there and go to it, all right?
You need to talk to Jeff Cordell.
This episode is also brought to you by our man Evan Slaughter and Fit to Serve. If you want something to brighten up your life, and maybe you're feeling a little poopy pants one day and you want to get a good laugh, you need to go and follow Evan Slaughter at
Fit to Serve 1 on Instagram and Fit to Serve on TikTok.
Roger that.
And I'm on YouTube, but not like y'all are on YouTube. I'm trying to grow that YouTube, but you can find Fit to Serve pretty much anywhere. You'll find me.
That's awesome, man. Evan made a trip from Birmingham, Alabama today to come out and spend time with us. So he had a couple-hour drive early this morning, and we wouldn't be able to do this episode and have the conversation that we're about to have without him being here. We don't have guests on a lot of times on the 3 of 7 podcast, so it's really special when we do. I got so many questions for you, Evan, because, like I said, I'm a fan. There's very few people that I follow or that I see online that I'm actually like, man, I would like to meet that dude. I would like to know more about him or her and their mission. But I've been drawn to you, man. So I want to really dig in on this episode to who you are, who's the man behind the awesome, content that is coming out that's making so many people laugh and enriching people's lives and who's the man behind that, and then we'll eventually get into where you are currently and what your mission is. And you guys on YouTube at the end of this episode, if y'all got any questions after listening to Evan speak here on the podcast, you guys will be able to interact with us in the comments as usual towards the end of the episode. So, brother, I just want to start out with your childhood, growing up, man. Alabama, right?
Yeah.
What was it like growing up down in Alabama, man?
So, born in Montgomery, southern Alabama. Quickly after being born, we moved up to Birmingham, and lived in Hoover most of my life. So, growing up in Alabama was, probably similar to here in Georgia, just typical Southern, lifestyle. Of course, in Alabama, it's like it's decided upon birth if you're an Alabama or an Auburn fan. So we're an Auburn family living 45 minutes away from the University of Alabama. So there was that, growing up a little bit. But, yeah, normal childhood, man, was into sports and all that kind of stuff, and then went to college in Nashville for a little while.
What'd your parents do while you were growing up, Evan? Were you close with them, or?
Yeah, so my dad actually, when of course this is kind of funny. I guess birth control isn't what it is now because my mom was on birth control when she had me and my brother, my older brother.
I'll be dang.
Wow. So
surprise, huh?
Not only were we a surprise, but we were trying to be prevented at the time, is how I like to word it. Mm-hmm. So my dad was working. My family, my dad's sister, so his brother-in-law, they have like a 5,000 acre working farm in Hope Hole, which is right outside Montgomery. Uh-huh. They raise cattle and all that kind of stuff. My dad was working on the farm. Just herding cattle, raising cattle. And after the two, me and my brother are like 18 months apart, he realized, I got to make some money to support this family. So that's when they moved to Birmingham. He went back to school, was working and going to school at night.
Okay.
To finish his degree. And then he got just a business degree and then started working for an engineering company. And so, yeah, pretty middle-class, normal lifestyle growing up.
How about sports and stuff? What sports did you play? What did you excel at? What did you enjoy? Because you obviously like sports. I mean,
like
look,
sports.
dude, this is my
Let
gift.
'em know.
This is my gift
Dude.
from Evan. Me
Let 'em
and
know.
Me
This is
and
the
Chili
coolest
and the
thing
tech
ever.
guy all got one. This is a pickleball, carbon fiber pickleball paddle.
Yes.
So I'm not a sports guy. I don't understand.
Yeah, we
sport.
know.
Chili here can name every single NBA basketball player. He can
Okay.
name every single one, their number on their bib or whatever they wear.
It's called a jersey, Chad.
And also where they played college.
Now, that's
Literally
impressive.
every single one. He's a walking sports genius. So what sports wise? I mean, how did you connect with that, man?
So my dad, for those that don't know, I'm a fairly short, stocky build, naturally built like my father. My dad was big into wrestling. He was a wrestler growing up. And so I kind of got into wrestling in middle school, but played a lot of baseball up until I was about 15 years old. So
Good
from,
man. What position?
I played second base, catcher as I got a little bit older, and then center field as I got even older because I was fairly fast at the time.
Okay.
So loved baseball.
I also played catcher.
There you go.
Very, very unknown fact about the old bull here.
Yeah.
I played baseball, the only sport I've ever played for a few years in middle school age. Yeah. And I was a jam up catcher.
Oh, come on.
By the way, I forgot to give y'all's weekly reminder, YouTube. If you think you're training harder than me, you just bull crapping yourself, man. You're full of crap. You think you're training harder than me?
Stay on track,
You're
man.
a bunch of dang turds, man.
He's got to
So,
get his,
I know.
I
weekly
see
yell
now
out.
why we connected. We were both catchers.
Yeah. Elite level athletes.
Yeah, for sure. Did you wear, when you were a catcher, did you wear the pads that went on your calf, the knee savers?
Yeah, he's not a wuss.
It was always a dilemma.
I didn't even wear a
Chad
chest
did.
protector.
You didn't?
Just kidding.
It was always
He didn't wear a glove, man.
Dude, it was always a dilemma, of whether to wear those or not because they were more comfortable, but kind of like if you wanted to be hardcore and you wanted to be fast and move, you couldn't wear those.
Those are for wusses, man.
Those things.
They're knee savers, yeah. I do have a funny story about catcher in Little League, though. It was a dads versus the kids, pre-start of the season game, practice game. So the dads would come out, they played with us on the field, and it was kind of us versus the dads. And they had a dad as the all-time pitcher for both sides. All right, so I'm playing catcher. Dad throws it. It's a pass ball. It was a bad pitch. All right, we got a guy coming from third to steal home. Just as the catcher should, I take my mask off, go back to retrieve the ball. Pitcher's supposed to be at home plate, and I throw it to home plate. He catches it, tags the guy out, right? This dad runs past me, flies off the mound past me. We're both getting to the ball at the same time. He turns around to throw it, thinking I'm at home plate for some reason, and hits me smack in the face. It knocked me out. The ambulance had to come. I had to have my nose cauterized. My face was busted open. So
Catcher ain't no joke.
It
man.
ain't,
It's
dude.
a physical. It's like the most physical position, I guess, in baseball. Is that right, Chili?
Yeah, they
I
get
mean,
more wear and tear than anybody else.
Yeah.
If you catch every day, I mean,
I remember having some dudes sliding into home plate, and I would just be like this. I put this knee down and just block them.
Yeah.
They couldn't score
Oh
a goal
my
on
gosh.
me. They could not score a goal on me, son.
a goal, man. One of them baseball goals.
I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you.
you ain't got to tell me. I already know, bro.
So,
yeah.
so
all
mainly,
about them baseball goals.
Yeah.
mainly, okay,
Football
mainly
bat.
in the.
Yeah, he is a football bat.
Nah,
if
I
you
don't
know what I'm
nothing
talking about.
I don't know nothing about football.
If you know what I'm talking about, Chad is a football bat.
Through and through.
Football's about the stupidest sport on
Up
earth,
and down,
man.
top to bottom.
I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, man. I mean, it's baseball first, okay? Because you got to be an intelligent human to play baseball, and then you got after that would be soccer, But football is the stupidest freaking sport on earth. If you watch football, You about an idiot. You know, well, that just goes to show the intellectual level of most of our society. You know, how low it actually is because football is so popular and it's a retarded sport.
Dude,
Okay. Play baseball up to about, you said what, about 15?
15.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you growing up a little now.
I'm growing up. I'm in high school, not playing in high school.
Why not?
I really just didn't even try out. It's like as soon as I hit high school, I was just more concerned with hanging out and having friends and partying and just doing. I mean, I was the kid that did not study in high school, coasted through with some C's, you know, no effort C kind of guy, which I think that's pretty impressive too. You know, most people don't study and fail.
Yeah, that was me. I was a no effort
study.
fail.
Yeah.
no
kinda
effort,
guy.
still got to see. That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
No effort C average. I mean, you know, they teach you that that's average. That's what I was going for, was average. So basically a straight A student in my mind.
No, I
Right.
I like that. I mean,
Just imagine if I put forth effort.
that's right.
If you was going 100%.
If I was going 100%.
Yeah.
I was a no effort go around to each of my teachers the last day of senior year and beg them to change my grades in the computer so I can get the
They gotta
crap
get
out of
outta
that
here.
place. And luckily they hated me enough to change my grades for me and allow me to graduate.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So that takes effort too. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that, you know, coasted through and I went to the SAT or ACT. We took the ACT, and I remember I went with this girl, like we rode together down there.
Was this your girlfriend or?
No, it was just a friend. We actually didn't even go to the same high school. She was just basically trying to motivate me to take the ACT. So it's like, we'll ride together down. I mean, I didn't want to even take it. I don't know why. I just wasn't a test taker. And it was like on a Saturday. Like, who wants to take it, you know?
Who wants to take a daggone Scantron? It was probably Scantron.
Scantron
right?
for sure.
Freaking terrible, dude.
I'm going to name my first kid Scantron. You know what I'm saying? Just in honor.
Scantron,
Get over here, Scantron.
I like that.
You know? So, because those tests are like non-existent now, I think. But man, a good Scantron test, yeah, fill in that bubble, baby. Come on. And if you get outside the lines, that might affect your score.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Oh, yeah. You had to fill it in. Perfect.
Yeah. So she looks at me, and I don't even have a pencil. She says, "You don't even have a pencil. You're supposed to have a calculator, some other things." She's
Number
like,
two
"You don't have a
pencil, son."
pencil?" I was like, "I don't have a pencil." So she had to give me a pencil, give me a calculator. I went in there, got a 19 on the ACT. No study again, which 19's not great.
Hey, that'll get you in college.
They got me into a private Christian school in Nashville called Lipscomb, which I think it was
no
more
way.
the money effort, you know, or the cost of going to that school that also helps get you in, because it's private Christian college wasn't cheap, and I had some help from the state of Alabama that my granddad had set up whenever I was younger,
Okay.
and I kind of knew that was going to be my option, was to go to Lipscomb.
So, you know, talking about this, it sounds like you were just going to or pursuing college just to kind of go through the motions. I mean, it doesn't sound like it was something you were driven to do. You're riding down there with this girl to do the ACT just for the heck of it, right? So, I mean, are you just going through the motions because this is kind of the next step that society tells us to take, or did you actually have your sights on something moving into that next phase of your life as a young adult in college?
It was more pressure from the parentals.
Yeah.
I think, you know, mom went to college, dad went to college, which I looking back now, I took that opportunity for granted. I wasn't as grateful as a younger adult, you know, that I am now, but it was, you're going to college.
Yep.
It was that mindset. You can't do anything without a college degree still. You know, that mindset was, I graduated high school in 2004, so got to have a college degree to succeed in life.
Yeah, that was back
you're
when
going to college.
Yeah, you back then you had, in my school anyways, it was a tech prep and a college prep kind of pipeline in high school. And like if you were on the tech prep, you were like You were
Scum of the earth.
you were like special ed, man. If you were on the tech prep
Yeah.
path. Well, it's funny now because I guarantee you, from our generation, all them cats that went tech prep that
Yeah.
were looked like scum of the earth, they're probably all millionaires or better
Yeah.
now. Not all of them, obviously, but they learned a skilled trade.
Yeah.
And so now, you know,
Own their own business now, probably. And,
the college thing is just it's taken a big hit, I think, since those days when you and I graduated high school.
Yeah.
And so you get enrolled, and what did you choose to do with that time?
Man. So, I'm 18. I was one of the older birthdays, so I turned 19, I think, freshman year in college. And I'm in Nashville, away from the parents. And I took that same mindset, like, I don't need to study. I went through high school.
Oh, yeah.
Had a great time. C student. You can graduate college with C's, so I'm going to take that route. But I was interested in exercise. I was always interested. At that time, I was really into working out. And I thought, if I can go there, study exercise science, get out, maybe be a personal trainer at a gym or start my own little personal trainer deal with this degree, that was kind of my goal, but I didn't put a lot of effort into that either. I kind of just enjoyed all the things that come with going to college. And Nashville's a cool town, so it's like to be in college. Oh yeah, all my friends were going to Alabama or Auburn, you know. So it was kind of unique to go to somewhere like Nashville. You got the bigger city and all that stuff. So you're not just in a college town, you're in a bigger city. So I just enjoyed the college life and went on the whole let's try to get some C's in this exercise science degree path.
And I meant to ask you too, Evan, you enrolled in a Christian school. Were you raised in a Christian home?
Church of Christ.
Okay.
Church of Christ, baby.
So you know the gospel?
I do know the gospel.
Okay, roger that. We love the gospel around this joint.
Baptized at 15.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. Now, you're moving through college. What do you graduate?
So I did 2 years up there. Now this is, you got to think. I mean, this school is really a predominantly Church of Christ, very conservative Christian school. It's small. The class sizes were smaller than my high school. I went to Hoover High School, pretty big high school. And we partied hard in high school. You get up here to this private Christian college and you're meeting a lot of people that were very sheltered through their high school years, like went to private Christian high schools.
Yeah.
And transitioned into this, and they're just now starting to kind of party. So I was like the one, like, y'all have never smoked weed before? Like, why haven't you been smoking weed?
Yeah.
I was the guy partying and doing this and that. So I did 2 years up there and then got put on probation because one of the clubs, we didn't have frats, we had clubs because it was private school. One of the clubs, one of their parties got busted.
So you got caught.
So somehow I come up, as the one who's, like
the leading man.
Yeah, I guess so. They come up with my name, and I get called to the dean's office, and he makes me ride around in the car with him to identify which house it was that we were partying at. All right. Now I knew which house it was because he knew too, but he needed someone to confirm it. And he took us straight there, and we got there. I was like, "No, that's not it." I would have remembered because the back, that was not it. And then I just took him driving around in the car around Cool Springs Mall in Nashville until he finally gave up. So I was on the probation thing, not motivated to be there. My brother graduated at that time. He was always 2 years ahead of school and me. Graduated from Lipscomb. He was there at Lipscomb too. And so I just, my parents were like, why don't you come home and go to UAB? So I moved back to Birmingham and picked up studies at UAB.
Huh. Okay. Now, your brother, so he's your older brother then, about 2 years ahead of you.
2 grades, 18 months.
18 months,
Yeah.
okay. Now, did you guys hang out a bunch, or was he kind of... What does he not like to party as hard as you? And
Yeah.
okay,
He's an older brother, which
Yeah.
I think there's something to that.
Yeah.
Man of the gospel. You know, there's something to birth order. It's like he just was always driven mentally. You know, now we had a father who when we were younger struggled with alcohol and drug addiction. Who you know, owned this business, this really successful business, got into cocaine addiction, took off to South America for a little while, just left us one day when I was 15, my brother was 17, about to move to college, and calls us from South America. Like, he's got his aunt down there. He's putting his aunt into Eric Clapton's rehab center, which is Antigua. I think that's Central America. Eric Clapton has a rehab center in Antigua. So he takes his aunt down there to put her in rehab, but really he was putting her in rehab, but also going down there to party. So he just took off, and, you know, long story short, ends up coming back. We get him some help. He goes to a treatment center in Minnesota, gets sober, and has been sober since. Remarried my mom and all that stuff.
Okay.
That happened in my high school years.
That's a heck of a story of redemption right there.
Big time. You know, relationships fully restored now with my brother and his family, and you know, been years since that happened. I was, I think, 16 or 17 whenever he was in rehab. So that went on in high school, which probably contributed to my lack of motivation too in school, you know.
But your brother more took notice of that and
learned from it, and made great grades. You know, met his you know, the girl that he's now married to freshman year in college. They dated all 4 years, got married. He still lives in Nashville. Beautiful family, 4 kids, got a nice little farm up there. Very successful.
Okay.
So we had the same, you know, environment growing up, but he went one way with it and I went a different way.
Yep. So you moved back to Birmingham. You pick back up with school there.
Right.
And how does that go? Does anything change? Are you just?
You know, I'm back in Birmingham now. I've had a little bit of life experience having gone to college in Nashville, and a friend of mine opens a gym in Hoover. And, you know, that's what I was wanting to do the whole time, was personal train and be in the gym environment. And he offers me, I then learned that you can get certified to personal train. You don't have to have, you know, college degree obviously is nice and helps, but you can also do the same thing pretty much with a online certification.
Yeah.
And, you know, find a gym to get plugged into. And I had those things. So I ended up just stopping school. I did about 98 credit hours and then was working so much already as a trainer in the fitness industry and making 30, 40 grand a year as a 21-year-old. So I was like, I'm just going to pursue this for now. Mm-hmm. So quit school.
Okay. Start working as a personal trainer?
Yep, working. Personal training.
I want to make note, the tech guy is the only person in this room with a formal college degree. Good job, tech guy.
That's true.
He's the only one.
And he's about to be the only one without a job.
You know, it was.
Isn't that funny how that works right there? That's a great point, Chili.
It was.
And he can't answer the phone. Still can't answer the phone. College degree can't pick up the phone.
Hey, I can kill a turkey, though.
Man.
It was great to hear just a little bit about, you know, just in a nutshell, the difference between you and your brother, because, you know, Blake and I both, we went separate ways, man. But he's the younger one, and he went more along the lines of, you know, he's got children, he's got a solid marriage, he's always been full of just good wisdom, and he's just been a solid rock.
Yeah.
For, you know, an example for me, even when I wasn't paying attention, he wasn't being an example for the sake of being an example. It was just he chose a better path than I did. So it was kind of reversed on our ends. So
yeah, that's cool.
That's pretty awesome.
That's interesting.
And so you're doing this personal training, man, and obviously you don't do it forever. So how long does that go on? Are you enjoying it? And what ultimately makes you decide to go a different direction?
So I am. I'm enjoying it. I love it. I'm in really good shape. I'm working out. I'm successful at it. I'm good with interacting with people, which is a big part of the job. So that was going well. The part that was not helping out was my extreme addiction to OxyContin at this point.
No kidding, man.
Yeah, I got started messing around with some guys and got hooked on opiates, and I would be like the guy that's like, personal training clients and then like snorting oxy in the car in the parking lot and come back in and, personal training clients. So I started to struggle with drug addiction myself.
Wow, man. Wow. I understand addiction from the perspective of somebody watching it. My wife's in recovery.
Yeah, I remember seeing something about that with Brooke.
Yeah, and so I've seen how brutal it is, and what it can, the chaos that it can cause in someone's life, and ultimately, if you don't stop, it's gonna get you. It's gonna take you out. It's one of the most powerful force I've ever seen on earth.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
It's demonic, is how I like to.
Yeah, talk to me about that. So talk to me about obviously that's putting you can't be addicted to opiates and like it will eventually get to the point where you can't lead a normal life and you see now not to say that alcoholism is any better because alcohol is a terrible drug, but you see some of these alcoholics that are able to kind of function in life but be an alcoholic. With opiates, at least in my experience and what I've been through, it gets to the point where it's like, nah.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that, man. You said that's a demonic thing. I've always thought the same thing looking from an outside perspective, but you being in it, I mean, what makes you make that statement? Because that's a bold statement.
Yeah, it is. And, it's taken me through it, When I was doing it then, it really kind of was more of I can remember the moment I found out that my dad was doing what he was doing. Because as a Church of Christ family, you don't have alcohol in the home.
Yeah.
You don't cuss. You're not even allowed to have music in the worship service, Yeah. So it was very conservative, but that was almost worse in a way because everybody's struggling with something no matter where you go. And in that environment, it was more like you just hid it and didn't talk about it. So when I found out about it and then found out that he was doing cocaine of all of it, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So everything y'all been telling me my whole life's a lie? So I was the type that my brother went one way with that. I remember still to this day that switch in my mind that was like, I am going to do whatever I want to do now. And I've got an excuse to do that. Man. I was mad.
Yeah.
So when I get to this age where I run into somebody who's like, hey, have you ever done this before? And it's a friend from high school or whatever, and you're back in town and you're, 21 now and all that stuff, and you try, I was at a point where, I'll try it. Why not? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did it, and then I think there's also something to it where some people are more susceptible to be hooked on it, And as soon as I did it, I remember I'm going to do this every day for the rest of my life. This feels great.
Wow.
That's how powerful it is.
Yep.
So fortunately, at that time trying it, and it's changed. When I was younger, the opiates are they keep getting different. You hear about fentanyl now, which kills people all the time.
Yeah.
But then it was just these OCs or OxyContin, which has kind of been restricted now in the pharmaceutical world, which is great.
Yeah.
But it just leads to people using street drugs too. So, I started down that, but fortunately was able to admit that I needed help pretty quick.
Really?
Told my parents, had a relationship at least good enough with my dad at this point where I felt comfortable to say, hey, I got to get some help, And they sent me to a rehab in Alabama that was 30 days long. So I went at about 21, almost 22 at this point, to a rehab for 30 days.
Well, so what pushed you over the edge to the point that you had made the decision, man, this is good stuff. I'm going to do this every day for the rest of my life. What pushed you over the edge to actually recognizing and then admitting that you needed help? Because that's a big step.
Yeah.
Like, what was there an event? Was there a moment, or like what enabled you to do that?
So the thought of like, I'm going to do this every day for the rest of my life was short-lived, because I was health conscious then. I was someone who was in pretty good shape. I was too young at the time to understand how much damage I was doing to my body with that, but also the physical addiction side, I knew nothing about it. So it was like I would try to stop and physically couldn't.
Okay.
You know, now I'm sick. I'm spending money on it. I'm using against my will, which is a big thing. Like, I don't want to do this, but I can't not do this. Yep. I didn't like that feeling. So, and also I think, so fortunately it didn't take me down through it too bad that first time, to where I was like, I just called my dad and said, hey, I can't stop doing this.
How did he respond, especially after going through
very good,
having his past?
Yeah. Immediately, like, I remember making that phone call, and then an hour or two later, we're basically on the way to rehab.
Okay.
It was a fast process. I was still on my parents' insurance, you know, so that helps big time, and you can get into a place pretty quick that way.
So you get a 30-day stint in rehab.
Yeah.
Inpatient.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool, because at first I was mad. It was supposed to be 2 weeks. And once you sober up, you're like, screw this.
Yeah.
I don't need this place, you know?
Yeah.
What was I thinking? It wasn't as bad as I thought. You know, all this bull crap starts coming to your mind. But what was cool, and I look back now thinking about it, because my insurance would cover 30 days, they moved me up to the 30-day program, right? Which at the time, at this particular rehab, meant that I went to the house where the military people were. So this particular rehab would take military, active duty military, that either, you know, self-admitted in active duty, like, hey, I'm struggling with addiction. They would get sent to a 30-day program while they're in active duty. And it just so happened that the 30-day program for the civilians was the same as the military.
Okay.
So I was put into this environment with a bunch of active duty military
Interesting,
guys.
man. Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So did you obviously you're in an intimate environment and going through this recovery process with them. Is that what kind of initially sparked your interest in the military? Was being around those guys in rehab, or?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always had a little bit of interest in it. You know, both my grandparents served. My grandfathers on both sides served. Of course, that was at a different time too, where they had the draft as well, you know, then, so they didn't always have an option. But it wasn't like my family's just, you know, all of them serve, so I'm going to serve kind of thing. But I had some friends that went out of high school. One went to the Marine Corps and all this kind of, and I always thought that was interesting. But what really did, you know, really motivate me was being with those guys in there, and then hearing them talk about it, and then me expressing interest in it, and them kind of giving me some advice on it. So I actually left that rehab wanting to join the military.
No kidding, man.
Yeah.
So you sobered up, obviously, during that 30 days.
Yeah.
You get out. What do you do when you get out and you're sober?
So I kind of worked the personal training thing, I think, a little bit, but very soon after, I started going to recruiters and talking about joining the military.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that go?
You know, I didn't.
Who'd you go talk to first?
Went to the Marine Corps first.
I did too.
Yeah, I wanted to be a Marine.
Every young man in the Southeast, when he decides he wants to join the military,
Marine Corps,
the first thing he goes to is the Marine Corps.
Absolutely.
Now, that's interesting because the Marine Corps is very picky.
Right.
And
I didn't know that.
Okay. And I imagine your stint in rehab.
Yeah,
that you probably told them about that, huh?
I didn't because I was advised. I forgot who it was because I asked about that too. But because it was private insurance and all those things, and then my medical record, it was it's like they wouldn't have known about it unless I told them.
Yep.
Is what the advice that I was given.
Yeah.
So I just left that issue out.
Okay.
But because I had some tattoos that were below PT shirt length, and they had to take pictures of me in a PT uniform, and then I had to get people to write references. And then actually, I think it was the Marine recruiter that told me to not talk about rehab. I think I did tell him, and he was like, we're not concerned about that. He actually told me that once you get in, you can do whatever you want. That's what he said.
Yeah,
like that was part of his selling point. Like I wanted to remain a drug addict. Well, don't worry. Once you get in, you can go right back to doing that.
Holy smokes. Man.
It wasn't that casual, but it was, they didn't care about that. So they were going to have me get 3 references written, which I did. I got all that done. I could have gotten in, and then I found out it was like a 9-month waiting period to go to boot camp. And I was the type, I went in literally thinking like, I go in, they're honored that I'm walking in to voluntarily join the military. Here I am, military. You're welcome.
Yep.
I want to sign my paper and leave on a bus tomorrow.
Yep.
That's my mindset.
That was mine too.
That's what I thought was going to happen. So when I found out it was 9 months, I was like, well, I don't even know if I want to be in the military in 9 months. I need to leave now before I change my mind. So I went to the Air Force. I knew I wanted to have a combat MOS. I didn't know much about the military, but I was always that guy that was like, if I go in, I'm going into combat, That's me, I'm not going to be no cook. I'm going into combat. And so I went to the Air Force and talked about their pararescue program. And then it was like the Marine Corps recruiting office was the only place that was separate. I went to, when I drove to go look at the Air Force, it was like Air Force, Army was next door, Navy was next door. So I just jumped right into the Army office and started asking about joining the infantry. And, took the test, the ASVAB and all that with them, found out it would be about three months after signing that I would leave, and join the infantry in the Army.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Coming right out of rehab like that. Straight into the Army.
Yeah.
That's a big transition, man.
Right. Yeah.
Holy smokes. So yeah, that must have been an impactful time. Spending time with those active duty guys.
Oh, for sure.
Rehab.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's huge, man. So the Army decides they'll take you.
Right.
You ship out.
Yeah.
What was Army boot camp like for you? I don't know anything about Army boot camp.
It was good. So we call it basic training. So there's the difference there.
Oh, dang, man.
Yeah, we don't even call it boot camp.
Well, in Navy boot camp, you mainly learn how to fold clothes, march, and sew, and that's Navy boot camp. Fold your sheets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Army infantry is a little bit different, where most like every other MOS, I think, I could be wrong on this, but it's like 8 weeks of basic, and then you go to your MOS detail, which can be a few months, Infantry is 14 weeks straight. So you go to Fort Benning, Georgia, and you do 14 weeks, and then you come out an infantryman. And there is kind of a transitional period from basic to infantry training, but there's really not. I think you get a weekend pass, and then you come back and you go right in infantry training. And so what they're teaching you is different, but you're pretty much doing 14 weeks straight. And I thrive in that environment. The yelling in my face, I expected that. The, being belittled and cussed, all that stuff I knew was going to happen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The drill sergeants even liked me. I was in good shape. I was the 3rd highest PT score in our basic company at the time. And if you're a PT stud and you're not stupid, they're going to like you, and you don't back talk, and because you see some people that just like, why would you say that to the, you know what's going to happen, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why would you ask that question? Like when they say, does anyone have any questions? Don't raise your hand, you know, you moron, you know? So it was just simple things like that. I mean, and of course you're in there with guys that are also 18 and never, you know, been anywhere except their mama's house. And so it was you know, I did fine in there and actually did well enough to where, you know, they had this 18 X-ray program, which is basically an opportunity to go to SOPC, which is Special Operations Preparation and Conditioning. And if you pass that, you can go to selection for Special Forces. So it was kind of like you could join the military with this 18 X-ray contract, which meant that, you know, you go infantry or whatever your MOS is, then you're going to go to airborne school. Then you'll go to SOPC if you pass airborne school. Then you'll go to selection if you pass SOPC. So it's kind of like as long as you pass those things, a guaranteed shot at going to selection right off the bat.
Gotcha.
Which was cool. And so several guys, after being in infantry training for 14 weeks, they dropped their 18 X-ray option. They're like, I don't want to do this anymore. So there were 3 contracts available, and they offered them to the 3 highest PT scores. And I was the 3rd highest PT score. And I really wanted airborne school, you know, so I took it and got the 18 X-ray contract while I was in basic.
Okay.
So that meant as soon as I graduated infantry, I got, you know, said hey to my parents for a few minutes, went to the other side of Fort Benning where they have airborne school.
Dude, I heard that
and went to airborne school.
I heard that school is freaking miserable, dude. Fort Benning, static line, airborne school. I've heard so many horror stories about that.
Did you not get to go to airborne school?
No. So when I joined the Navy on a SEAL contract. And so by time I made it through boot camp, buds, we took our jump school in SEAL qualification training.
Okay.
By this time, the Navy had developed their own jump school. So it was all in-house. So we learned static line, and this was all taught by civilians.
Yeah.
Static line, free fall, halo, hey-ho, the whole 9 yards within like, I don't know, jump school was like maybe a month long. But
that's cool.
Yeah, it was just, it was really.
Knock them all out.
It was really chill, man, at a civilian drop zone just outside of San Diego.
Yeah.
And, you know, all that cushy prima donna Navy SEAL crap. I mean, how could you expect? But they used to send SEALs to Fort Benning.
Right.
And I have heard about that school, like you're up at 3 hours before sunrise, you're jocking up with
company
your
runs,
and you get your static line shoot on, then you got to go sit on a bus somewhere or on a DZ for hours, all jocked up before, and then doing just, I've heard hundreds of reps of PLF and all this. So, I mean, did you enjoy, you wanted to go to jump school once you got there? Did you actually enjoy the experience, or was it frustrating?
Well, so I was so green in the military.
Yeah.
Then too, I had no time in a unit, no time in a regular. You know, I was just right out of infantry school. You know, training. You
so
know,
that's all you knew.
That's all I knew, and so it really wasn't that bad that way. But you would get guys like Marine Recon guys that were having to go to airborne school. Some SEALs probably were in our class too at that time. Air Force, whatever. You get a few of them that are higher ranking and all that stuff that hated it because I mean all the things you said. I mean, like every time you left the company area and came into the company area, you had to do 7 dead hang pull-ups and like airborne at the end, you know, and then standing chow, like Marines were getting in trouble for their hands in their pockets kind of stuff, and they hated that because in the Army you can't, even standing still, can't have your hands in your pockets, you know. So it was very bathed in tradition. It was which was cool, you know, but it was, you know, airborne school since when they started airborne school, you know. You do the company runs to cadence, and of course the long waits with the jump stuff. The thing that was challenging, which I was fortunate enough to skip because it rained that day, was Tower Week, which Tower Week is terrible because of how many injuries occur. Like, they don't even have it anymore from my understanding, but it was this tower that, like, had a little field around it, you know, but parking lot everywhere else. And, like, it was 250 feet tall. They would bring you up and then release you in an open canopy already. and you're just practicing from 250 feet down, and you would land, but guys would, and they do this demonstration where they bring a dummy up and they show you like, you have this amount of time to pull your reserve, and here's what happens if you don't pull your reserve, and the dummy just smacks the ground, But people were floating into the parking lot, because the wind would carry them because there wasn't a lot of room, and breaking legs.
Oh, yeah.
So fortunately, it rained during our scheduled tower week, so we got to skip tower week. And but now, like I said, I think they don't even have it anymore.
Well, a lot of people don't understand the difference between. A lot of people, all they want to think about is like the free fall stuff, and they think because that's the sexy thing, right?
Yeah.
But the static line jumping is actually infinitely more dangerous than free fall.
Right.
One, because you're jumping out of a plane with a static line chute at a low altitude.
Yeah.
Always. I mean, 1,000 feet?
Yeah, 1,200
Yeah,
sometimes.
1,200 feet. You're jumping out, and you've got a cable that's coming off of your chute that's on your back that's attached to a cable in the actual aircraft. And as you run out of the back of the aircraft, that cable stops and basically deploys your parachute, which is a big round chute that you then have no control over. You can't really steer it. You can't flare it, meaning that it's falling at the rate it's going to fall.
Yeah.
And as the ground comes, you can't slow it down like you can flare a free fall chute and actually have a nice soft landing.
Right.
This static line chute, you're just dropping like a sack of potatoes, man.
Yeah.
And you have to land a certain way. It's called a parachute landing fall.
Right.
Feet and knees together. You land and roll. If you
Keyword fall.
it's a controlled
It's a
fall.
controlled fall.
If you don't do that, you're going to break your legs.
Yeah.
It's that bad.
Yes.
And another thing about static line, the reserve chute is right here on your front, right?
Yeah.
So a free fall parachute, if you jump out with free fall at 12,000 feet, you deploy your main chute at 5,000 feet, it's a bad chute. You're a long ways from the ground. All you have to do is pull a little red tab. That main chute breaks away and it automatically deploys your reserve chute.
Yeah.
They're connected together. In static line, if you come out of this aircraft and your daggone main chute is fouled, you want to know what you have to do? You have to open up this big, it looks like a fanny pack on steroids.
Yeah.
You have to open up this big old thing on your front, and you have to start throwing your reserve chute out and hope that you're falling fast enough that it catches some wind.
Yeah.
For it to actually inflate and stop you.
Yeah.
Right? And you've got 20 seconds to do this before you hit the dang ground.
Yeah.
So it's a brutal evolution, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I do want to talk through your military career, because when I first started following you, Evan, I knew immediately the first time I saw you that you were or had been in the military.
Yeah.
I could just, your tattoos,
Yeah.
the way you carry yourself, I was like, yep, without looking at any of your past posts, the first video I said, this dude he was in the military in some capacity.
Yeah.
And it's something that you have, I think, not completely shied away from, but it's not a part of a lot of your content,
Right.
which makes you really unique.
Yeah.
Because a lot of creators, a lot of influencers are going to lean real heavily on that.
Yeah.
And you haven't done that.
Right.
It's not, you don't hide it, but it's not front and center. And I think a lot of people that see your stuff, unless they were somebody like me, they would have no clue that you served in the military, and you are actually a Purple Heart recipient.
Yeah.
Which is a huge, that's unbelievable, dude. I mean, I don't have a Purple Heart. Right. Thank goodness, but you've obviously went through some difficulties, some challenging times there. And I want to talk through your military career and just what you got out of it. What happened? what, why you decided to ultimately get out and all that good stuff. But I guess to start with, what year was this that you joined?
2010.
2010.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you make it through airborne school, and then do you proceed to go through with the Special Forces selection course, or? Yeah.
So, and I'm glad you phrased it the way you did, because I do, like, my social media stuff, it isn't military, like you'd have to realize, or someone who was in the military, I get the most from like guys that were in there, like, you were in the military, weren't you?
Yep.
Because I didn't want to go down that niche and just be, military audience owner. I want to, share my stuff with everybody.
Yes.
So I get a big military following, and I think it's more successful because I don't just put it out there, not knocking guys that do or whatever, but I knew I wasn't just going to go down that road. I felt like I had more to share than just that.
You've handled it masterfully, in my opinion.
Well, I appreciate that, because it was part of the strategy going into it.
Yeah.
But so anyways, to get back on track, so I'd graduate airborne school and go up to Fort Bragg for SOPSI. It's summertime, and they are in a holdover. They're not doing SOPSI or selection at Camp McCall during the hottest months because of heat casualties at the time were real bad and high. So you're in holdover until basically late August, I think, which, it's still really hot, in North Carolina at this point, even into September there. I go through the holdover process in SOPSI, which was a couple months. That was the first time I got to actually go on leave and go back home. It had been a little while after joining since I'd done that. And then get called up to go to SOPSI, which is basically 21 days of a pre-selection out at Camp McCall. It's kind of like selection, but they're teaching you more stuff. You still have to pass events, roughly 18-mile ruck march. They don't tell you the distance or the time that you have to complete it, kind of deal, but we figured it was about 18 to 20 miles, the last ruck that you do. You do a lot of land nav. They actually have classes with land nav. They make you watch the movie Green Beret with John Wayne.
No
for
kidding,
some
man.
reason, which was funny because John Wayne does everything wrong in that movie. Like, he's got his rifle slung upside down over his over his shoulder, and he's flagging it, like, all his team members the whole movie, like pointing his rifle, using his rifle as a pointing object.
That's wild. I would not expect that.
It was just, I think, a comedic thing that they do. So there's some classes and stuff. It's not easy. You're out there living at Camp McCall, which is they also known as Tent City. So a lot of the Special Forces training happens out there. Past that, and then I came back, and I was supposed to have like 3 to 4 weeks before going to selection. Which would have been great because I could have recovered, rested, maybe gone back home one more time. But some guys got dropped from the time we were gone for like leaving without permission and just different stupid stuff. And so it bumped my name up in order. So I had to turn around and go back out to Camp McCall like a week later for selection. And I was broken off, dude. I mean, you have to go get all this stuff sewn on all your uniforms, repack all your stuff, Yeah. And, not making excuses, but I went back out there just with the worst mindset, I mean, it was like, this was the test now that you've got to pass just to get into the Q course. And I wanted more time to be ready for it. So I go out there and fail the last ruck by like 5-something minutes and get dropped from the course.
No way,
but it was I was a non-voluntary withdrawal, meaning I didn't quit. Yeah, which meant I could try as many times as I want to, but in the process, I came up on orders for a LRS unit, which is long range surveillance, and everybody that I was talking to there, even some of the cadre in that program, were like, "You need to take this opportunity."
Really?
So there were 3 LRS units in the time at the military, and they were basically created to be reconnaissance units, and there were only 3 of them. And so they were stacking them up at the time, and deploying a lot. So I got orders to go to 238 Cav, which they're attached to a military intelligence brigade, but you're like the forward eyes for this military intelligence thing. So you had to be infantry, you had to be airborne qualified, you had to commit to go into Ranger school because they were big into the Ranger indoctrination. I think maybe at one time LURS units were originally attached to Ranger Regiment, but it was like you couldn't promote unless you were Ranger qualified there.
Okay. It's a pretty specialized unit.
Pretty specialized unit, about 65 guys.
Wow.
We were the only airborne people in Fort Hood. They'd never even seen airborne people before. Like, we were on West Fort Hood, so off the main post. And it was actually a really cool opportunity, and I was glad that I took it. Of course, when we get there, we find out that 3 months later we're deploying. You know, like that's why they needed people.
Wow, man.
Was to go deploy. So pretty quick turnaround before I was going to Afghanistan.
Man, so you get over to this new unit, this LURS unit in Fort Hood. Do you guys have that 3 month time span? What are you guys doing? Are you guys training? Are you getting ready? Do you know what the mission is?
Well, it may have been maybe a little bit longer than 3 months. It wasn't much longer than that, though, and it wasn't long before. So when I get there, they're actually staffing up a personnel security detachment for the SCO, for the Senior Commanding Officers team. And they interview me and choose me to be, like, I'm in the LURS unit, but I'm also going to be on this personnel security detachment for the colonel when we go.
Yep.
And so we're doing some training around that and gearing up to deploy. And then we go to Louisiana for our little pre-deployment training, which lasted 3 weeks or something. And then we come back, we go on R&R, and then we deploy. And I think it was maybe February time frame when we deployed. And then, of course, or maybe, no, I'm sorry, it was April or May. And this is 2011. And Osama bin Laden was killed like May 2nd or 3rd, 2011 in Islamabad, Pakistan, right?
Yep.
So we deployed to Spin Bulldog, Afghanistan in that same month. He was just killed, and we were stationed about 225 miles from Islamabad, Pakistan. So we were on the southern border of Afghanistan and Pakistan, of Afghanistan right into Pakistan. So it was kind of a unique time to be over there. Yeah. Things sort of heated up as soon as we got over there.
I bet,
Big
man.
time.
It's amazing to me, too. You're talking about this is now 2011. You joined the Army in 2010.
Yeah.
So you're less than a year into your career. Yeah. And you're getting ready to deploy to a combat zone.
Yeah.
In a really volatile time.
Right.
And you've got a year under your belt. It's insane, man. That that's why I have we see so much on social media, and we hear so much from the Special Forces community, in the public these days. All right. Now, yes, there are great things that have been done by special operations units over the last 20 years, some high profile missions and this and that. What you don't hear about is the guys who are serving in the Army, the infantry guys, the guys that are parts of these specialized units within the conventional Army that have 6 months or a year of active duty time and training, and they're going down range on usually a year-long deployment to a combat zone. And, I've got a good friend. His name's Tyler, and he's in a conventional Army unit. And this dude has probably got, I would say he has more combat experience than any special operations operator that I personally know. Yeah. Because he's the Army they just send guys, and they keep sending them, and Tyler's had to do these back-to-back deployments through his entire career that are a year, plus long, and these guys are learning how to fight like on deployment because they got less than a year of training under their belt. Yeah. Whereas me, I didn't deploy for the first time until I had 3 years of service.
Yeah.
Because the training pipeline is so long. You got so much training, time to mature, time to really hammer things out. So
Yeah.
it's just unbelievable to hear that you're deploying over there with a year after you've enlisted in the Army.
Right.
I want you to just talk me through what that deployment was like, man. Because what was it like showing up to Afghanistan? Like, when you got boots on the ground, were you like, holy crap, this is for real? Or were you really relaxed? Did you feel prepared? What was that like for you?
I think about that often, especially as I get older, because, you're surrounded with really good leadership. You're surrounded with guys that have been there and done that are kind of talking you through it, helping you know what to expect, even though, you're never going to know what to expect until you're there doing it. But at least I did. I felt more comfortable being around that leadership and around such a good unit, of guys that, you're going into it. I mean, I was handed, I was made one of the long-range marksmen as we were getting ready to leave and get handed this M14, rifle with a 20-inch barrel. It was really cool. I mean, we were cleaning the packing grease off of it. 20-round mag, 7.62 by 59, 20-inch barrel, 10-power Leopold scope. I've never shot it before.
Wow.
Okay. I've never shot anything like that before in the military, We were trying to zero in these 10-power Leopold scopes on this terrible range in Kandahar, Afghanistan when we got there, So it was just a lot of new things being thrown at you. And, of course, you land into Kandahar, which is huge at this point. I mean, there's all these militaries from around the world there. There's like a boardwalk area that's got all these shops and all this stuff, and it was just a mass place where people would come into country. And I guess some people were stationed there and stayed there for Kandahar support. But then we would push out to our FOB and spin Bulldog from that place. Mm-hmm. So when you get in there, there's kind of some stuff you're doing to get ready to go to your FOB. You're waiting a little while. And you would get mortar rounds coming in every now and then over there, and people would, get killed from the mortar rounds, but just not that often. It just wasn't. I remember getting so comfortable in that environment where it's like you hear the sirens go off and you're like, you want to go to the bunker? Nah, let's not go to the bunker.
Yeah.
kind of deal. So we finally get and push out to our FOB and where we were going to be, the majority of the time. And it was about 70 kilometers from Kandahar in a ground convoy south. And I remember the unit we were replacing picked us up. Their PSD picked us up. So I was on a 6-man team with the PSD, which was cool. Because, we got to do a lot of stuff. And we were always like first to have the information, and all that kind of stuff. So it was cool because you're going with the senior commanding officer places, he was a lieutenant colonel. So since we were a Cav regiment, he had a colonel that he answered to, but we answered to the lieutenant colonel. So, and he was cool, Ranger guy, wanted to be at every mission, every firefight, everything, he wanted to be there kind of guy.
So a solid dude then.
Solid dude.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, it was cool. Sergeant Major was good. And so we're driving with the PSD that we're replacing, and they're telling stories of hitting IEDs, And I remember hearing that thinking, God, they hit an IED? Of course, we're in Afghanistan, and they're all over the place. But it just became real at that moment that, like, people are going to die here. People are getting injured. We're at war. Especially in that drive, it was like, okay, we're in a place where we're at war with some of these people here.
Yeah. Yeah, they want to do harm to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And that became real kind of on that drive into Spin Bulldog.
Man. Once you get out to the FOB, what's that like, moving from that kind of controlled environment in Kandahar to now getting out to your ultimate objective where you're going to be operating out of? What's that What's that fob like? What's it set up like? And then ultimately, what is the mission? What do you guys start working?
You know, it was really cool. It was small, but not too small. We had it was, of course, tents for everything, basically, but some of them were larger structure type tents, like the chow hall and that kind of stuff. So there was a place to drop your laundry. They had some decent internet service on there, but it just wasn't huge. So when we get there, you know, it's funny because I think about it now, like, it seems like most of the attacks and most of the stuff that would happens in the transitional periods. Mm-hmm. So a unit's going out and a unit's coming in, and they're going to test us.
Yep.
And they're going to kind of claim their stake as, you know, this is who we're fighting, and this is, you know. And so they just saw it as a good opportunity to attack. So pretty quickly within us getting there was a lot of combat. Mm-hmm. Someone ran a vehicle-borne IED into a gas station right outside our fob and blew the gas station up and attacked a bunch of locals. And they were bringing the locals were flooding to our fob for help because they don't have any medical services. And so that was the first time I had to deal with dead bodies, you know, dead bodies that were charred up so bad that you couldn't identify them. Like, I remember having to guard bodies to keep the locals from taking the bodies, so we could find out if they were American or not. Mm-hmm. You know, so that happened like a month into being in Spin Bulldog. And then it wasn't long after that when we get a call that we've got a KIA. So now one of our units, one of our guys, has been killed in action.
Operating out of that same fob?
Yeah.
Okay.
In our LURS unit.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm on the, the SCO wants to go, right? It's our first KIA. And I remember hearing that and thinking for a second, what do they mean KIA? And then one of my buddies came up and was like, that's somebody killed in action, you know? Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, here we go. You know, we're getting into it now. So we jump in our little 3-man convoy, and I'm the gunner of the lead truck. The unit that we were replacing was still there. That's how new this happened.
Wow,
you know, they were still there getting ready to leave. And one of the guys who was like the platoon sergeant from the other PSD came, and he was like, I'll drive for you guys because I know exactly where this is at. So he swaps out with my buddy who was supposed to drive. All right, and this dude was bad to the bone. I mean, like, deployed with Ranger Regiment, was in Ranger Regiment most of his time, and then was with this LURS unit at Fort Bragg. And, I mean, he'd been in combat multiple times. He was awesome. So he's driving us, and we go out there to provide security and help for this KIA, you know, because usually you're thinking they hit an IED, now where's the ambush? You know, so we come to provide some security. And we're crossing up over a wadi and I remember he was driving super fast. And like I said, we had a mine roller attached to the front of the truck, which is, you know, digging through the sand to try to prevent IEDs from blowing up under our truck. At least it would hit the mine roller and blow up in front of us. So, and I'm on a stand-up turret on a gun, and I'm short, so I'm standing on these ammo cans, and I'm hanging on for dear life up there, you know, bouncing around, and this dude's flying. And we go to cross this wadi, and then boom. All I remember was chemical burn, unconscious for a second, waking up, trying to figure out what's going on. There's smoke all in the cab of the thing. The mine roller's been blown off the front of our truck. And the platoon sergeant in the TC seat is saying, contact IED, contact IED. So we just hit an IED, right? The driver starts backing the truck up, and as he's backing the truck up, he loses consciousness and goes out. That was, come to find out, his second time to hit an IED in country. And he had just swapped out seats with my friend who was supposed to be driving. So I look down, and I'm thinking, am I okay, you know? And then my left leg, I could barely stand on it at the time. And we get medevaced back to base. And when I get there, they fly off the guy who was driving. I still don't know what happened with him. I mean, I know he was alive, but I think he had some pretty bad TBI from that.
Yeah.
And then come to find out, I had dislocated a tendon in my ankle and was banged up, but was roughly okay. You know, I couldn't really stand or walk at the time. But after the smoke cleared, you know, I find out my ankle's jacked up. They want me to go to Germany to have surgery on it, or that's an option, and I turn it down to stay in country because I wanted to stay the full deployment. and talked with the medical staff, and they said, that is an option. You can let your ankle heal how it is, and a lot of times that's better than having the surgery, because the surgery can be pretty sketchy. So yeah, we hit an IED, and I'm 3 months in the country at this point.
Man, and how long did this deployment last?
We were the last 12-month deployment before the 9-month deployment rotation started. So the unit replacing us was a 9-month deployment, but we were 12.
So you're 3 months in. You got 9 to 10 months left out here. You choose to stay out there.
Yeah.
And you have your lead vehicle, convoy, your vehicle hits an IED. I just can't imagine how do you overcome that? Like, after going through that, like actually hitting an IED, like realizing that, oh heck, not only taking an injury, get a concussion plus the injury you had, but then realizing like, wow, my life could be over at a split second and I can't see this coming. Like, I can't fight back against this threat. I can't imagine how much stress that puts on you mentally to then have to go out into that environment over and over and over again for 10 months after that happens. I mean, how did you keep going? Like, what was driving you to keep going? Because that's got to be, I mean, I've never experienced that before. So
it was, I think a lot about that. I was young, and I was real, strong-headed, I think. I was, like I said, in really good shape physically. I was there doing what I wanted to do. Like, when I joined the military, I remember thinking, I want to deploy. Like, I want to go to combat. I want to do these, And then, of course, you go through some stuff, and you realize, man, how grateful you are. But, part of me, a lot of times, guys, you hear guys talk about, like, PTSD and stuff, and I heard someone, I used to think I'd never struggled with anything like that, and then I heard someone define it like, and I don't want to take anything away from the guy that was killed in that incident. His name's Corporal Frank Gross. He's from Florida, 23 years old, played college baseball, commo guy. But I remember thinking almost that sense of, man, I wish that was me dying for my country. Yeah. Because you get that sense of, and people might think that sounds weird or cocky or whatever, but it's not, because you almost get, I remember guys on our team wishing that they were closer to the IED that I hit so that they could get a combat infantry badge and get, the things that come in, because you're there to serve your country, you don't want to die, but at the same time, man, what an honor though, too, when you see guys that give their life for that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is just something that it's hard to explain. So a lot of that for me was the motivation for, like, going home was not an option for me. That wasn't a choice. They'd have had to force me to go. Like, I'm staying. I'm in this fight. I'm going to do whatever I got to do to stay. Ask me if I'm okay. I'm going to tell you I'm okay, And I had like a medical boot for a little while, and I would drive. So I couldn't dismount. I couldn't stand up in a turret. I could gun a Crow truck, a common remotely operated weapon station from inside the, truck. Yeah. But I did a lot of driving until my ankle got better. And then by the end of the deployment, I was fine. I was running again. I was, sucking it up. One of the things, though, that came along with that injury was, well, now I'm back on opiates again.
Oh, man, come on.
And
I didn't think about that.
I started taking painkillers again for a legitimate reason.
Yeah.
So whenever I end up leaving country and we go back home, they put me on pain management, and it's right back off to, well, now I'm hooked on these opiates again.
Holy smokes, man. Well, first of all, thank you for describing that. What a awesome description and testimony of a true warrior's mindset. Like what you just said about, the way you felt about your teammate that was KIA, and the way you talked about, hey man, you're going to have to You're going to have to run me out of this place to make me leave. I'm in it. I'm here to serve my country. I'm here to do this job. That is a true warrior's mindset, man. I mean, that's a testament to the man that you are, Evan. That is a testament. Holy smokes, the man that you are, to just describe that mindset and where you were at and what you were thinking and how you pushed through that situation. What an encouraging account. And I love hearing that, man. I love hearing that. Let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back in, and I want to pick back up on what happens on the backside of this deployment, man, because sounds like we got a story to talk about there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, man, YouTube's freaking out. I just was looking. I don't ever get to see the comments on that all you YouTubers make on the thing there, and I stepped behind the screen, and somebody was saying, y'all should play music if you're going to put us on a live hold. Screw you, dude. What the crap, man?
Get on them, man. Tell them they don't.
I'll whack you upside the head with this pickleball paddle, son.
They don't tell you how to run your podcast.
No, man. This is my podcast, man.
Right.
Brooks on there commenting.
Oh gosh. I would hate to be the one that has to watch the comments that come through on there.
She said, Brooks said you have an overactive grundle.
I mean, well,
No, man, we got that grundle stretched out this morning, son. Yeah.
Blood flow is good.
The blood is flowing, son.
You can feel it when you've got your grundle nice and exposed. I mean, you can just feel way more flush. The skin's lighter.
I went over there and greased mine during that little intermission.
Hey.
She greased it up.
Normalize proper grundle care. Hashtag normalize proper grundle care. You know?
All right. Well, let's jump back into this, man. Year-long deployment. Is that where you got your Purple Heart?
Yeah,
From
so
that
it was
IED
from that
incident?
IED incident. Got it overseas and was one of the only battlefield promotions over there, which was pretty cool.
Wow.
So, yeah, I got the combat infantry badge, the Purple Heart, and a battlefield promotion after that,
Man.
which was cool.
We get back home. Pain management.
Yeah.
Do you immediately, what are you thinking? Do you immediately know, all right, this is going to turn into an issue, or are you kind of denying it for a while, or what happens?
So, you know, I think a lot of things played a role there. I remember coming back after that 12-month deployment with, you know, that's a great feeling. You're alive. I was in combat, you know, I received a Purple Heart. I came back with this ego almost that was like, dude, I've done it now. What other 24-year-old can say, or 24 or 25 at this time can say that they've done what I've done at my age?
Yeah.
You know,
Not many.
I had a pretty big ego from that. I felt like a, you know, pretty bad dude, and so there were a lot of things that started to kind of play a role. Driving became difficult. You know, I start realizing, like, because when you drive over there, you're driving, you know, like aggressively, like you're in combat.
Yeah.
So I noticed that, I mean, I got like multiple tickets, so many tickets, traffic tickets, that my license was actually suspended. You know, I had a couple speedings in a construction zone. And I just started realizing these things, like, I'm just displaying this behavior. Which I think is normal to some extent. You know, you go right from combat right back into the civilian world. No real transitional period at all.
Yeah.
So I just had this mindset, like I wasn't even thinking. I felt justified in what I was doing a lot. Taking the pain meds that were prescribed.
Yeah.
I felt like I should be doing it. You know, I was injured over there. But then it, just like anything else, you know, especially being an opiate addict, it turned into, well, now I'm abusing them. Mm-hmm. And why am I abusing them? You know, what's going on that's making me want to abuse them again and all this kind of stuff. And So yeah, I finished my time in the military. Just kind of not really doing much after that. You know, there were some good training opportunities, did some really cool things with the LURS unit, but my ankle was getting worse, and every time we would jump, and we jumped a lot, you know, it would just get worse and worse. And I realized that if I was going to stay in the Army, I was probably going to have to reclass and not do something so damaging on my body, which I just didn't want to do. Mm-hmm. So now I start kind of coming up on the end of my career, and I get out of the Army, and I leave the Army to head back to Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm hooked on pain pills. You know, you don't have TRICARE insurance anymore as soon as you get out of the military. So from the time you go to join the VA and do that whole process, which takes time, I just came back with a bad pill addiction again.
What? So I get what you were saying about your ankle was getting worse. You came to the reality that if you were going to stay in, you were going to have to reclass. What played into you making the decision to close out that chapter of your life? What ultimately made you decide to leave the Army?
You know, I think I was really kind of starting just to struggle, like with life in general. Okay. You know, I didn't, a part of me thinks too, like I had that mindset, like my time should have been up in that IED incident. Like I'm on borrowed time now, you know, I've skipped death kind of deal, and I was living every day like it was my last. And I had this mindset that was okay. You know, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do. Partied real hard, you know, went out to bars a lot, go to the beach, all that, you know, just living this just irresponsible life. And I think I was just really struggling, you know. Mm-hmm. Didn't really have the desire to stay in anymore.
Okay. You come out, you cut ties with the Army, you get out, and the addiction aspect, is it progressing quickly? Is it getting out of control at this point? Or what? I mean, because once you get out and you get back to Birmingham, I mean, what is your plan? What do you plan to do at this point? You got to do something, but you know, and is that addiction now standing between you and having any plan, or what did that look like when you got back home, man?
Yeah, so no plan really. Just go home to mom and dad, see if I could find some work, and the addiction part was definitely getting worse. You know, I was going to civilian doctors now to get the medication I needed, running out of it too quick, just going down that road again. Yep. You know, I could see it happening fast.
Yep. And how does that come to a head?
So, I get into some legal trouble. I have this wonderful idea one day that... So I was actually taking Valium as well, and some of that was I was having trouble sleeping. I don't really blame it all on deployment or but there were definitely some night terrors and just stuff like that. Excuse me, because it wasn't long after I deployed, not too much longer that I got out of the military. Altogether.
So abrupt. That's another abrupt transition then.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm on this Valium and taking these painkillers, which is a terrible combination anyways. And I run out of the Valium one day on a Saturday, and I've got this idea, like, you know, I could probably just prescribe myself some Valium. You know, I've seen it done enough times in doctors' offices that I feel pretty confident about this. You know, they had the DEA number right there on the prescription bottle. Some of them do. So I got a DEA number off a prescription bottle, and I call the pharmacy like I'm Joe Doctor, you know.
Yeah.
And just try to prescribe myself some Valium, which I knew at the time that you could prescribe that level of narcotic, class 1, over the phone. But then they started asking for other numbers that I didn't have, know, that I didn't even know what that meant. Yeah. So I would hang up with one pharmacy, call another, and turns out that while this is going on, there's some kind of flag in the system, like, hey, somebody's trying to prescribe themselves some medication. So I get a call back from a pharmacy, and they say, hey, Mr. Slaughter, we've got your prescription up here. And I'm thinking, great, it worked, So I go up to this pharmacy, and I was in a reconnaissance unit. So I knew what to look for. So I'm like driving around the parking lot, like making sure it wasn't, something else going on here. Don't see anything. Walk up to the counter, pay for the medication, and as soon as I do, I'm arrested.
Wow.
Cop comes up from behind me and grabs me. And I start the whole, I was in the military, trying whatever I could to get out of it. It turned out to be a blessing in my life because I went to, jail for a little bit in county jail, which sucks. And I was able to sober up, and they put me in a veterans court program, which is more about helping you than it is about getting you in more trouble. Mm-hmm. So they put me through another rehab, and I get out of the veterans court program, graduate, sober up, get clean, and started kind of getting back into church. I found a church there that some friends were going to and started going to do that. Started doing these small groups, started meeting new people that weren't into some of the things that I was into back then, and just kind of trying to stay sober and survive at this point, was fortunate to have some parents to go back to and kind of started working for my dad again and just getting accustomed to being in normal life and doing that without something controlling my mind or my body, all those different things. I struggled a little bit from graduating that Veterans Court program, staying off of the opiates. Sometimes I would legitimately be hurt again and want to take them. So I battled a little bit there. Ended up getting married, and it cost me a marriage because I couldn't be honest about what I was doing, and I was trying to get myself. It wasn't like I was just this terrible person that was out there, doing all this stuff and all this crime and doing these drugs. I was holding down jobs, had a good job, good dude, just lying about struggling getting off these opiates.
Yep.
And then finally it came to a point where I went to one more treatment center that was a not-for-profit, faith-based deal, and it was 3 months long. And it was really good because it was more about my spiritual health, too, which I learned was the problem all along, if I want to put it bluntly. Yeah, there's addiction issues. Yeah, there's all these excuses I could make for why I was doing it, but ultimately it came down with I was spiritually sick, I wasn't looking to the right thing for solutions to these problems that everybody struggles with. I was taking and finding ways to avoid dealing with it. And so they taught me that and reintroduced me to Christ and all that, and had to rededicate my life.
Please break that down for us, Evan, because with no doubt there's people watching this right now. What's up, YouTube? There's people watching this right now, probably dozens, if not, I don't know, but that who are going through recovery, who have been through multiple treatment facilities, who are trying and still struggling. They're in the place that you were in there. And talk to me about, that's a profound statement. What you just said was ultimately it boiled down to your spiritual health. And what was it that you connected with, or what clicked with you? What is it that you needed to hear? Or what is it that you needed to recognize for you to be able to realize that was the problem all along? And then how did you fix that? Or how did you get to a better place? Yeah. I just want you to explain that process as you experienced it.
Yeah. It's tough because growing up in church and doing all those things, looking back, like, man, you would think that I would have this relationship with God and all this different stuff, and that I would have known about my spiritual, ailments and all these different things, and being able to identify what it was, the whole, but the truth is I was living my life like, yeah, I believed in God, but I wasn't living my life that way, Mm-hmm. Whenever I was in the military, I felt like I had purpose. I had a purpose. I knew what my purpose was. It was to serve my country as best I could, be a member of the armed forces. I had purpose. And I remember, telling you earlier, I thrived in that environment, and I did because I liked having that structure. I liked being told, this is what you need to do in order to succeed. It's cut and dry, step by step.
Yep.
Do this and you'll get promoted. Wear this on this day. They've got a manual for everything, so I liked that. And then whenever I got out of the military, I didn't have any purpose again.
Yep.
I felt like I did not have any purpose again. And so it was really coming to know, building a relationship with God, and then discovering a purpose in that relationship. And that's where the whole fit to serve thing came from. Mm-hmm. Because I believe that we're all fit in some way to serve. Mm-hmm. When I was in the military, I was serving my country, right? But now that I'm out, what ways am I serving? How can I serve someone? Mm-hmm. And we can get into it later, but that's what I try to do with my comedy, is serve. You've got people that, you putting on this podcast is a way to serve others. You're providing a platform to push a certain message, right? So you're finding a way to serve. School teachers, man, they serve. Like, I couldn't imagine being a school teacher. Could you imagine being in a third grade classroom right now?
No, man.
With a bunch of booger-eating kids and everybody screaming and yelling and, that ain't for me.
Yeah.
But that person who's in that environment, that likes that environment and thrives in that environment, is serving because that might be their purpose. So I realized that we all have a purpose, and discovering that again, it was like, man, once I discovered that and got physically separated, that was the first thing, get physically separated from substances like that are clouding your mind and your thoughts and your judgment, and get physically separated from that for enough time, and then have someone, feed you life, feed you truth, show you a purpose again. That's what I needed to hear and go through in order to find a life to where I don't even think about drugs, and that ain't even an option for me.
Man.
You know what I mean? That it's just not something, not that I couldn't go back to that, but it's just not something I struggle with anymore.
Wow. I love that you just highlighted that word, service. I love that you just highlighted that, man. Because that, like you said, Evan, there are multiple types of service that we can, choose, or where maybe we have gifts and talents for in our life. Service in the military is one. And I think this is something that I've seen here recently, and you highlighting this aspect of service and how important it is and what it actually means to serve, it just brought it up in my mind. We've gotten confused. A lot of us, a lot of people have gotten confused about what service is all about and the purpose that it creates in your life. And so the reason, the dynamic that I see here is, especially when we look at military service, when we look at especially what's been going on in social media right now, people have forgotten that this the true service, like Evan's talking about, it's not about you. It's not about your abilities. It's not about your accomplishments. It's not about what you did. Service is about, it benefits you because it gives you purpose, but service is about fulfilling a mission that is bigger than you, right? And so, if you notice, when Evan just went through his military career as he described it, this is how I know that Evan understands service and just serving his country in that one chapter of his life is, Evan didn't spend a lot of time talking about how good he was and how he didn't make it all about him. He made it about the mission. He talked about serving his country. He talked about the service was what was driving him, right? That's what service is, man. But so often we want to get fired up and we want to defend ourselves, our capabilities, our accomplishments, what we've done, how good we are, and we've just totally lost. Well, what was the reason we were doing all this stuff anyways? It's so easy to shift the focus from service to yourself, and then you wind up in a position where you're just constantly trying to defend yourself because your mindset has changed to where everything is now your whole life has been about you and what you've been able to do. And maybe you started off on a path of service, but you got it twisted somewhere, and now all you can think about is yourself and what you did. And I'm just telling you, man, that gets twisted in people's mind. And when you said you rededicated yourself to Christ, what did that mean? What did that look like?
So, for me growing up, everything was so structured and so just more focused. I feel like a lot of the times, and not knocking Churches of Christ or anything like that, but just the way I perceived it was more about the church and all this different stuff, the religion behind it, and no music and and I kind of got away from that in my journey and found that I identify with different types of services, and so the whole I'm very non-denominational relationship over religion kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And I had to find a relationship again with God. So for me, that meant, admitting that Christ is my Savior and my life is yours, guide me however you want to. One of the biggest things that I've started doing since I left that last rehab every day, and I forgot the name of the prayer, but it says, "Oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my territory, that your hand would be with me and that you would keep me from evil so that I may not cause pain." And there's a name to that prayer, and I'll get it to you. Okay? Mm-hmm. And I forgot, it's named after the person who said it. And there's a book about it. All right? And it's this whole idea that you say that every day and watch what God will do. Okay? "Oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my territory." Like that, I've been saying that every day for a while now, mm-hmm. Years almost. And it's my social media stuff, enlarge my territory. It continues to grow. So my purpose is different. Like I try to turn my will over to God every day. Mm-hmm. That's my deal, And I don't talk a lot about this on my social media thing too, because I want to reach people that, sometimes when it's just like the military thing. Sometimes when you go the Christian only route or the military only route, you're leaving out the largest group of the people, and those are the ones that are sick, man.
Yeah, you definitely get pigeonholed into one.
They're the ones that need it.
Yeah.
So I just try to let my content on social media, and some of it's risky. Sometimes, guess what? I say swear words sometimes on there, guys. I try to beep it out, but I say swear words sometimes. So it's I'm come and watch the content, find laughter, find some positivity through laughter. Not to push my t-shirts, but I sell these as well. So positive, try to find, that's my message, positivity through laughter. Find your purpose to serve other, So come to the page and enjoy the comedy and all that kind of stuff. But those that stick around, hopefully you'll hear the message that we're sharing today.
It's happening right now.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, it's happening right now. This is part of that, part of the goal. This is part of the culmination of that, man.
And this is where you get the real, content. And you want to know the story about, how I got to where I'm at with the social media. So, this is the real message here. Is there's a purpose to your life. We're all designed to serve in some kind of way. Find that purpose, and you won't even feel like you're struggling in life anymore, because I was struggling in life. I didn't want to be, life was hard for me every day. You know what I mean? Getting up was not enjoyable,
Yeah.
and that's a miserable place to be. And some people, it's so miserable that they can't handle it and they kill themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a real problem we have today. Fortunately, I didn't reach that point, but I was miserable and I felt trapped and I didn't want to be, and I don't have to live like that anymore, because now every day it's like, man, there's so much more to this, I've got that. I'm finding that purpose. I'm finding that way of life, and it makes all those other problems that I was struggling with just non-existent.
Yeah.
At least for that day.
Yep. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, man. Having purpose in Christ, and by the way, Christ gives every one of his sons and daughters a purpose within his body. We all have a gift. We're all uniquely designed and created and made within the body of Christ and called to be a part of the body of Christ so that we can fulfill that purpose within the body. And Christ ultimately is the answer to despair. So I've talked about this over and over again. You have two choices in this life. You're gonna suffer, but if you choose to suffer alone, you will ultimately find yourself in despair, which means you will find yourself in a moment with the total and complete absence of hope. And that's when people take their lives. That's when people give up, and they may stay alive, but they might as well be gone, right?
Yeah.
And so, but if you choose Christ, you can suffer in life. Your suffering will always have a meaning, and you will always have a purpose. So you become immune to despair, and despair is the thing that's killing people.
Right.
Despair is the thing that's killing people. You understand what I'm saying? That when you get to the point that you can go and murder another human being, when you get to the point that you can take your own life, where you get to the point that you can commit some violent, heinous crime against another human being, it's because you're hopeless.
Yeah.
There's no meaning to life. So purpose in Christ is what staves off despair, because this life is freaking hard, man. And you better find some purpose in the hard stuff, and you better find some purpose in your day-to-day, or you're going to succumb to despair.
Yeah, for sure.
At the end of the day, that's the two options that we have as human beings.
And I was just looking on my phone. It's the Prayer of Jabez, Jabez.
Okay.
I would encourage you and your listeners to look at that book. If you search Prayer of Jabez, I'm sure the book will come up, but it's pretty cool. It breaks down the prayer and explains why each part is what it represents. So try it, say it every day, and that's how I was challenged. Like, why not? It takes 10 seconds, see if it works,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hit my knees and I say it, and I haven't stopped, and it, things continue to grow.
And they will continue to grow. Yeah, Blake just taught a message on prayer on Resurrected this past Sunday. It was a great message. So that's over there on Patreon. I do want to talk about, Evan, the genesis of Fit to Serve, the genesis of the name. Let's start with that. You kind of alluded to it over the last, couple of minutes of our conversation, but how did you nail that down?
So originally, and I haven't shared this before, I don't think, on any other platform, but originally, when I got out of the military and I was in that period where I was, getting sober, but still struggling a little bit, I started a little workout group, and I called it Fit to Serve. It was going to be free for whoever wanted to come. We would work out outside. It would start with the workout, end with a Bible study. All right. And the idea behind it is kind of what Fit to Serve means now for me. But it was also along the principles of, like, more so focused on the physical aspect of it. Like, God calls us to go out into the field and harvest. mission work, basically. How can we go if we're not physically fit to go? Mm-hmm. That was my idea behind it. So it was like a workout thing with a message or a purpose of, I'm trying to get in shape so that I can be a better servant of God and go out and serve other, and I just didn't really stick with it. And I remember I was sharing with you that I was still kind of in a place where I was struggling. So it just it started off great and then sort of fizzled out. I left it alone, but it stayed my username for a while.
Okay.
And then whenever I came back to making content, I always liked the name Fit to Serve. Excuse me. I decided to make that my TikTok name. And because it was already my Instagram, decided to make it my TikTok. And then I just started putting out my comedy videos under that name. Mm-hmm. So that's where really, when I got it back going, I was thinking, yeah, I know what Fit to Serve means. But at the time, I just started doing comedy stuff. But then as the comedy grew, I was able to share what fit, because people would ask, where's your username mean? And I was like, well, let me tell you about it. So I made a video on Instagram, and I think I shared it on TikTok as well, explaining what Fit to Serve means for me. Uh-huh. And that's kind of where it started, and then I just decided to keep it.
And I got to ask, Chili asked before, why comedy? Because you first of all, you've got an amazing life story. You've overcome all kinds of difficulties and failures and struggle, and you've got so much richness about your life that you could have went any different direction, man. And so why did you choose to go? Obviously, you're really good at it. Did you know you were good at the comedy stuff? Like, why did you choose to go that route? Because you could have went 100 different directions, man.
Yeah, so I'm just more comfortable making people laugh. I've used that in my life for a lot of different things, whether it was maybe I was full of fear and I found the outlet of comedy to get through that. Military guys, we talk a lot of times about the dark humor that comes along with that, and a lot of that's just laughing so we don't cry, or laughing so we don't lose control because of anger, or using it as an outlet. So I've done that my whole life. I wasn't, I used that to make friends. People liked me because I was funny.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it was harmful to me because I was just, not harmful, but I could use it to be inappropriate. I could use it to put others down. I was really good at putting other people down, saying things that were hurtful. Mm-hmm. You hear that phrase a lot, hurt people,
Yeah.
like I'm hurt, so I'm going to hurt you. So I've used comedy for that as well, but I've just always been the funny guy. As I got further down this social media road and started making these comedy videos, a lot of that was because I was learning to love myself again. That's another big part of my message, is I didn't know how to love myself. I hated myself. I hated myself for the divorce. I hated myself for the mistakes I've made. I've hated myself for all these different reasons. So I was learning to love myself again. Okay. I've been in shape my whole life, Well, guess what? I hit my mid-30s and, got sober and then found comfort in eating food instead of using and being lazy and all that stuff. And I got out of shape. But for the first time in a long time, because I was still on this right path, I was able to love myself. Do I want to be healthier physically? Absolutely. But I started making these videos, and it was freeing for me. At first, the TikTok thing and all those videos were just a way for me to kind of show myself that I'm comfortable in my own skin.
Wow.
It really wasn't about, I had no intentions at first about the videos doing so well and me grow. I wanted that. I thought that would be cool. So there was a little purpose, but I wanted to see what worked. But a lot of it was me discovering, hey, I'm cool with me.
Yep.
I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in an unhealthy way. You know, I've got a spiritual advisor I talk to all the time. Every week we try to meet on Fridays. And he always tells me, you don't have to worry about what anybody else thinks about you. You just have to worry about what God thinks about you. And I was like, that seems simple, but let me think about that for a minute. If I don't care what all of y'all are thinking about me, and I only care what God thinks about me, then that means I'm only trying to please God. And through that process, I'm probably going to do a lot better with y'all. You know?
Yeah.
I'm going to be more kinding and servant-hearted and loving and all these different things, all these different attributes, if my focus is, what does God think about me? So I was able to take that mindset and then find a way to make people laugh by kind of just not laughing at myself, but having fun through that process. Like, the fitness stuff is big. Well, I'm not fit, you know, right now. I've been fit. Mm-hmm. I'm working to get back fit, but I'm not fit right now. But I have a lot of success in that area because I'm kind of laughing at my journey. You know?
Yeah.
And then people are relating to that, and that's what surprised me. I didn't think about that. You know how you feel like you're the only one that thinks this way or has this thought, or, you know, and then you put it out there on social media or something, and you find out, oh, lots of people feel like this. So the fitness thing started to take off first, and it took off because people who were out of shape like me and were wanting to get it healthy, but maybe they were too scared to go back into the gym, or too uncomfortable, or couldn't love themselves, or couldn't, you know, they were starting to gain that confidence just from me making these silly videos, basically poking fun of myself a little bit. And I would get messages from people like, hey, seriously, I know you're just being funny, but you're really helping me. You know, I struggle with weight gain, and I've gained 50 pounds, and I'm trying to lose it, and I was too ashamed to get back into the gym. But I get up whenever you do these funny workout videos, and I do the workout with you. And that was never,
Man.
at first, the idea. Because you've seen the videos, you know, I'll do some actual kind of little workout videos. And then I started being purposeful about it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be funny with this and do the right music and do these, you know, the right angles with the camera to make it funny. But I'm going to throw a little bit of actual workouts in there, you know, push-ups, air squats, whatever, just to help people be encouraged enough to get up. Maybe they're at home sitting on the couch, they're scrolling through, and they're like, man, I want to, this is inspiring me to get up and move. And that's what was happening. People were seeing that, and then they would get up, and even if it was 30 to 60 seconds, at least they're moving.
Yeah.
And then let's take that motivation and hopefully that manifest into, you know, maybe them getting back into the gym one day. And so I started finding that purpose for myself in this process. Like, okay, people love the comedy. I feel comfortable with that. I feel like I've got the capability to make things funny. Now, what am I going to do with it? You know, what am I going to do with this audience that I'm getting? Am I just going to try to make them laugh and then, or what's the meaning behind it?
Yeah.
So then it kind of helped me start discovering a purpose, and I started just going into these different little avenues of things like the pickleball thing. I've been doing that, you know, to try to get back in shape, and first started playing pickleball way back whenever I went to that last treatment center. It's like God put that in my life. Like, hey, I'm going to introduce you to pickleball real quick, Evan.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be at the Major League Pickleball tournament years later, you know, handing paddles out to you guys and, you know, getting flown over here to do this pickleball thing and flown over, you know. And it's like, dude, it ain't about the pickleball. You know, it's great, but people are coming to laugh, and then I'm trying to feed them something else. Does that make sense?
Man, that makes total sense. And what a totally unique and like innovative angle to work. Because you're an amazing human being. And I don't know that anybody's approached inspiring other people, purposefully inspiring other people, but almost at the same time covertly You're drawing them, and then they're inspired, and they're getting up and starting to move, and you're giving them this opportunity to feel to feel like, holy crap, I can get up and move. Like, yeah, I want to get back in shape. I totally get that. I couldn't imagine, dude. I hammer on people all the time about being fat. I hammer on them all the time, but I don't know what it feels like to be fat.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be straight up with you, man. I've been a skinny stick my whole life. I can eat whatever the crap I want.
Yeah.
I have no struggle with it at all. Like, I can't imagine what it feels like, though, to actually get to the point where you are significantly overweight, and what that does to you mentally, and how hard it would be to get up and say, okay, no, I'm going to walk into this gym. I'm going to actually move my body. There's got to be a point for so many people that they get to where they actually begin to think, no, that's not for me anymore. I'm too far gone, right? And then they see you up on the video with your shirt off, hanging it all out there and having fun doing it.
Right.
And they're like, holy crap, man. That looks fun.
Yeah.
And look at this guy. Like, he's on his journey. And I can do it too. What do you need? It's an unheard of gift that you're giving to so many people, because obesity is a significant problem, and it's a deep rooted problem. It's not just about eating. For so many people, it's about so many different things that have happened in their life, and so many different things led them to that point, right?
Right.
And I don't know, man, just to hear you lay it all out there, and how you've been purposeful about it, and you've been for the reasons you've been doing it. I picked up when I first started watching you that there was something really special about you. But I didn't pick up that much I didn't pick up the purpose that you just described, because I'm a skinny ultra runner, right?
Right.
But to hear it and hear you lay it out, and the angle that you're able to work using your gifts and where you are right now with the body that you're in and what you're doing with it.
Right.
Freaking is awesome, dude.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I don't want to say, like, or want people to think that maybe God made me fat for this season to fit, but then I also think about, like, because I have been in shape, and a lot of people don't know that I have been in shape a lot most of my life. I've been in shape more in my life than I've been out of shape.
Yeah.
And I got out of shape, in a pretty quick amount of time, put on weight fairly quick, started eating, started finding comfort in food and all that kind of stuff, so there's so many aspects to that right now that I think about, because I can personally say that I know the struggle. It sucks. It sucks, like, finding clothes that fit right and doing all this stuff. And so it's like I can understand, because when I was a younger personal trainer, I was like you. I could not understand why people would be overweight. I was like, I just don't get it. Don't you know how better you'll feel whenever you're healthy and blah, blah, blah? And why would you want to feel that way and do this way? And then whenever I, got in my later 30s and got out of shape, it was like, I get it now. This is tough, especially when you get out of shape, you get comfortable. You can get comfortable being uncomfortable.
That's right. Yeah, it becomes your new normal.
It's your new normal, and it's just, I got to deal with it, and now I'm going to wear slip-on shoes only because I don't want to bend over and tie my shoes, and now I'm going to wear waistband things because I don't want to. But fortunately, I don't want to just go down that rabbit hole further. I want to be healthier, and that came from, like I was saying earlier, okay, I've got purpose again in my life. I love myself again. I get, all these things, I feel like I'm good with who I am no matter what I look like. But now, because of that, now I want to do something about my health because I enjoy being on this earth again. So it's almost like I had to go through this, whole period in life, see what it feels like to be, overweight for my size and my body and all that stuff. and then experience the struggles that it takes to just get back up and moving. So a lot of these videos were helping me too, because I would go make these funny fitness videos, and then when I was done making it, I would be out of breath.
Yeah.
Like, man, that was tough. And I would be like, I got to do more of this because I got to get in better shape. And then I would go to the gym after and do just a little bit more, and then do a little bit more. And it started from doing these little funny videos.
Yeah.
So going back to what we were just talking about, if those videos seem to be helping other people that same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what really drives my motivation to continue this journey when I get those messages and I get all that stuff. You know, I was telling you earlier, I very rarely get negative comments. I just don't get a lot of them. You know, people, they enjoy the comedy. They enjoy I think people can see too that there's pretty much not a lot I can say to this guy because of what he's putting out here on the camera. You know, he's not going to care if I try to put him down or whatever. But every now and then you'll get people that just say hateful things. And I've made it a purpose to find those comments and make sure I respond to those comments. And I respond to those comments in a way that helps me grow as a person, right? So I just say, hey, you know, you're right. I do got to lose some weight. You know,
Yeah.
I appreciate you making that comment. I'm actually on a fitness journey. Check out some of my other videos if you have a chance. Hope you have a great week. And so many times, dude, you will get messages back from those people and they'll say, hey, I shouldn't have said that. You know, I just went and watched some of your other videos. I think what you're doing is awesome, blah, blah, blah. Now, not every time, but it's like, if I can just, because it's hard, you know, I want to be like, don't you know who I am? Or don't you know who I think I am? You know, like, I was in the infantry not long ago and been to Afghanistan and served. You know, I could throw all that in their face.
Yeah.
But why?
Yeah.
You know, why don't I just thank them and show them some love and some kindness that maybe they're not getting from wherever they're at in life and just move on?
Man, you're an awesome example. You are an awesome example.
And that's helped me grow.
Yeah.
That's what strength looks like for me. I used to think strength was fighting people like that. Like, oh, you going to say something to me? Well, I'm going to say something to you. Know, that's how I
Come on, man.
that's what I thought
Yeah.
strength, that's what I thought it was to be a man, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was to be a man. If you disrespect me or say something to me, I'm not a man if I don't react. If I don't fight you or say something back, I'm weak. And then I learned that that's actually weakness.
Man.
How much harder is it to show that person grace and love and kindness? That's
y'all hearing
cutting
this?
you off in traffic. That's in your face calling you fat. That's saying, you know, how much harder is it to be like, hey, you know, you're right, dude. I do got to lose some weight. I hope you have a great week, man. Take care.
Are y'all hearing this,
That's
YouTube?
what's hard.
Are you hearing this, YouTube? You better be hearing this, man, because what the man's telling you is the exact truth, but what the man's telling you is the exact opposite of what you're seeing happen
Right.
all over the place right now. So be careful who you're daggone hitching your wagon to. Be careful who you're looking up to. Be careful who you're going to emulate, because it's likely the opposite of what true strength really is. Y'all better listen up, son. If this podcast was just that clip, that's a clip the world needs to hear right now. Gosh, dude, you're an awesome example of a person. I tell you what, too, man. I'm going to open it up to Blake, Chili, and also to YouTube for any questions here in just a second. YouTube, if you got any questions for Evan, hit them in the chat. Tech guy, if he's gracious, will take note of them and write them down, but y'all know how he is. But here's the thing, man. As you continue to do your thing, Evan, you continue to share your journey, and you do eventually you do get back in shape. You do get healthier again. Like, your story's already amazing. And you could just stay like you are and just keep doing what you're doing. Like, there's a big part of me that's like, man, I don't want Evan to get back in shape. I want him to keep doing what he's doing. But then there's a big part of me that's like, no, this dude is a very unique human being, and I want him to live as long and be on this earth as long as he can be on this earth. And when you do complete that part of your journey, your story is just going to get that much more powerful.
Exactly.
It's gonna be this and it's already magnificent. It would take us multiple episodes to dissect all the divorce, all the aspects of recovery. All we've just hit the high points, right? But it's already magnificent. But now this is just another layer that you're adding to complete this story that God has given you. And while it's happening, you're not wasting the time. You're actually utilizing the time step by step.
Right.
You're serving others. You're fulfilling your purpose. Man, if we could all do that, well, how much different would this world look like, son?
It's so funny because I do get comments all the time like, if he gets in shape, he's not going to be funny anymore.
I knew you got those. That's such bullcrap, man.
It is. It's such bullcrap.
Yeah, my thing is, dude, I've been funny my whole life.
That's it.
I was funny when I was in shape. I'm funny when I just find I think I've been, one thing that I was born, a gift, if you will, is to see things in life comedically. I think that's what some of the best comedians can do, no matter where they're at in life, is see things comedically. And the other part of that is, you know what? If that happens, so what? Then my message just continues to what it is. The ultimate message is, and if I were to sit here and keep talking about, trying to motivate people to get up and move and lose weight and stuff, and I don't do it myself, then I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah.
I can't just keep telling you I'm on a weight loss journey and not lose weight. That's not what it's about. Like, honestly, I don't care. I want to get in shape again because I want to be healthy and live a life. I know that God will find ways to use that, So, and like I said, I'm not concerned. I don't concern myself with what the world thinks about me. I just try to keep that one audience, and that allows me to continue this journey and know that whatever happens, as long as I'm staying in the right will, then it's ultimately the best thing that could happen.
Yep.
Man, when you started talking about the transition into making that type of content on Instagram, as you kept talking and you talked about, the journey that you're on, all I could think about was, because I've heard it said to other people with different things of like, man, are you worried you won't be funny anymore? You said it, but I was going to tell you, man, please don't worry about that, because that's not what makes you funny. You are a funny guy. It has nothing to do with that. That's just where you're at right now, and you're funny. Like, you'll be funny. You'd be funny as a tall 6'8" guy. You'd be funny as a short guy. I mean, overweight. It doesn't matter. Like,
he's gifted, man.
Yeah,
I watched him working today. I watched him work today.
Has nothing to do with that.
It's just gift. Yeah.
Has absolutely nothing to do with that. So, but I know you already know that, and
well, I appreciate it for sure, because it definitely helps to hear that. And I've had just random, fans say that as well,
Yeah.
So it's like I was saying, man, it's just one of those things I feel confident in, in.
Well, dude, I think you're funny because of what you say and how you act and how you present yourself. It doesn't even have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, but another thing, man, I've been sitting here thinking this too, and I don't think of myself as like a super corny guy. But what I'm sitting here thinking about you is, well, maybe I am. But I mean, what I'm about to say has never come out of my mouth, this type of corny. But you are literally, like, you've got such a light, man. Like I don't, that's an overused term, and whenever the people say it to other people, I kind of cringe. I'm like, what's that even mean? But I know what it means, like, when I see you and I hear you talk and I see the passion in your voice talking about serving other people. And just when you got out of the truck today and met us and we filmed the stuff, I mean, I'm like, dude, you bring light to me, to us, to everybody that comes in contact with you. I mean, I know what it meant. Like, you embody that. And also, I believe you, man. Like, I think you mean it when you say you're on a weight loss journey. And I don't even know how hard that's going to be or is or anything like that. But your whole story is just riddled with examples of you overcoming big obstacles that kind of seem insurmountable at the time, whether it's addiction to opiates or your military career or whatever it is, and you've overcome it each and every time. So this is just the next one, and I see no reason to think you won't do it again if that's what you really want to do, and I believe it is what you want to do. So you're just going to keep growing, like you said, in all ways, and that doesn't just mean the follower count; it means everything.
Yeah.
So
You actually can't.
I appreciate it.
I mean, you actually can't.
I mean it, man. I don't say stuff I don't mean.
Oh,
and
yeah, I appreciate that for sure, bro.
You actually can't fail when you're doing what Evan's talking about. He described it as the audience of one.
yeah.
When you do what he's talking about, you actually can't fail. You
right.
actually take all the risk out of anything that you're doing.
Yeah.
You just it is impossible to fail. You are anointed. These with the life that I've gotten to live, I've gotten to be around very special people. You being one of those people who have achieved great things and who are very well known, and what you come to realize is special people aren't special people by accident. It's because they're anointed. There's something about them that when you get around this person, it's like you just can't help but want to be around them. I mean, I filmed videos for 2 hours this morning and didn't get mad a single time.
Like, you don't understand. That never
I was
happened.
going to say, do you normally get mad?
I usually I hate
I'm
doing
glad
videos.
I know that now
man.
after we film, because I'd have been nervous to make it.
No, and it's just that anointing that you have, and for all you guys listening, if you can comprehend what Evan's telling you about, looking to your Creator and looking to God as the author and finisher of your faith and your life, and daily submitting yourself to Him and doing everything in your power to please Him, praise Him, serve Him, fulfill His purpose within His kingdom, you can't fail.
Right.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So, Blake, what's up, man? What's up, Tech?
I mean,
We got any? You can say what you.
yeah, let
ask
me
any
talk.
questions.
Just hush, man. Let me talk here.
Freaking turd.
I mean, as you talked, what stood out to me was that a lot of things, God certainly didn't have that for your life of opiates, of even gaining weight and where you're at now. Like I would could argue that God didn't have that for your life, and that we add those things to our life. But through that, if we continue to serve God, He uses that to glorify His name, right? The Bible says that God uses all things for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. And that's for us, and it's also for other people. So
Yeah.
you love God and you are called according to His purpose, and so are the rest of His children. And so He's using that for you, and also using you for that for other people, right?
Yeah.
So the testament that you gave of people reaching out and getting, because you can say fitness journey is a fleshly thing and stuff, but it's not. Being in shape and is biblical. You talked about the whole creation of Fit to Serve and where that came from, and being fit so that you can go, and so all these things.
Sure.
And so God is using you in where you're at right now to serve through your whole journey. So it's just cool to see that. To me, it's just a testament of the things that we do to ourselves that God doesn't necessarily have for us. He still uses us in that process, and it's not like hold on, let me get back in shape before God can use me. Let me get back off of these pills before God can use me. Those should be goals, but He can use you right where you're at now if you have a willing heart. Right?
Absolutely.
So that's what stood out to me through everything, and I mean, I'm just honored to sit here and listen to it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Does the tube got anything worth talking about?
Well, a lot of them, they just begin to ask these silly questions, and but there was, let's see, one here that's a good question for Evan. This is from Rent Collector. You
up?
and him got something in common.
What's up, Rent Collector?
He says, "What standards have you set for What standards have you set out for your journey? So
Probably talking about the weight loss
probably,
journey.
yeah. But you can answer it in whatever manner you want because he didn't say.
Yeah. So if in regards to losing weight, I make a lot of videos poking fun at CrossFit, and that has led me to a CrossFit gym. So got invited by an awesome gym there in Hoover, and it's like Over the Mountain Fitness there in Hoover's CrossFit style gym, and they are been super helpful working with me there. And then it's like these gyms have just been offered up, after making some of this content. But that same gym that I was working at before I joined the military that a friend of mine owns is still open in Hoover. It's like Hoover Fitness, and I go there as well. So it's like I do these classes CrossFit style, and then I've been doing some stuff at the gym. But another big part of that has been eating, right? Nutrition's huge. I am one that my idea right now of doing better when it comes to eating is just not eating DoorDash all the time. Making myself go to the grocery store, buy my food there, prepare my food at home, and I find that just through that process, I'm eating healthier. And then in terms of just like setting standards for, myself in the social media career, man, it's like I've got these goals, for the year, and certain places that I want to be. We talked about stand-up comedy at lunch, and putting on a show and looking at opportunities to do something like that. So I've got certain things that I want to do, and we got the merchandise out, which we've done pretty well. God's definitely blessed us in that area as well, man. March was a big month for us selling some of the T-shirts, which obviously helps me to be able to do this as well, and it helps just get people asking about the Fit to Serve brand. So hopefully that answers his question.
No, that's great. Gage Grizzle's on here. He said, Chad, is Evan allowed to eat Bojangles?
I heard you don't like Bojangles. You don't like Bojangles, is
Dude,
that right?
I've been on a mission against Bojangles for years.
Tell me about that, because I'm a big Bojangles guy over here. I mean, I can be. It's gotten worse over the years, but man, a good Cajun filet chicken biscuit with some ranch, come on.
Man,
Tried to tell you.
Really the root of it, a lot of my rants
He's just angry.
a lot of my rants against Bojangles are that exactly. They are rants, but a lot of it to me is I see so many people in my own community here, especially in the South, when I walk around and I see so many people who are like really overweight, but they don't even realize it because it's become so normal to be overweight that an overweight person they're just like everybody else, right? And what really gets me passionate is, contrary to popular belief, I actually care about people. Like, I want every person to be able to reach their maximum potential in life. I want them to be happy and healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually. I know how much this life with Christ in a healthy body has to offer to each and every one of us. And it's important for us as individuals. It's important for us as a community. It's important for us as a nation that we all strive for that. One of my good friends, Andy Frisilla, always says, personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion. Actually, much of our freedom as citizens of the United States is rooted in our personal physical and mental health, right? Because if you are unhealthy physically, you are dependent on the system, because eventually you're going to have to be on some sort of medication. You're gonna have something that takes you out of the workforce or your ability to serve your community. And I think that obesity in communities and in our nation is one of the things that's largely been normalized, but it's one of the things that's really contributing to the collapse of our nation. And so I get really fired up about that because I care about people. I care about my community. I care about my country. I don't want people to be a slave to big pharma. I don't want people to not be able to get out and plant a garden, to work in the community, to use their bodies purposefully. And so when I go by the Bojangles down here in town, it may be good food, but let me tell you, they are a huge contributor. All of these fast food chains are a huge contributor to the problem with obesity. Now, we live in a capitalistic society. If you want to sell unhealthy food, you should have the right to sell unhealthy food. I'm a man of principle. If I was going to open a restaurant and serve food to people, sell food to people, I would, by my conscience, it would have to be healthy food. I'm a man of principle, right? And I go by these fast food chains down here in town, and there's a daggone line wrapped around Bojangles, and every one of those people in that line, I'm looking at them, and they're sick.
Yeah,
they're horrifically overweight. They're just, it fires me up, man. And Bojangles specifically, because it's the one that has the line wrapped around it.
That has the best food.
Yeah,
I'm glad I went to Jack's this morning and not Bojangles. So I feel much better about that.
Right.
No, I'm getting it that Bojangles is just the word that represents all of the
all the fast
big
food chains.
pharma, all the fast food chains, all the things that are detrimental to your health. That the government allows. That's what Bojangles means.
Man, yeah, it really does to me. So
it just so happens that it's the Bojangles you pass. That if that was a McDonald's, you'd be saying the same thing. Yeah, I get it.
That's what it says.
I love it.
You look that up in Urban Dictionary, it'll just be a clip out of what Chad just said.
So
that's what Bojangles means.
When somebody runs a car through the front window of Bojangles down here in Rome, like they did a couple of weeks ago, I'm rooting for that dude, man.
It's because their foot was so fat it couldn't touch just the brake. It hit the gas pedal too.
I bet nobody outside of Rome heard that news story that Bojangles got a car rammed
posted on
through
my
it.
story.
Well, what little do they know who paid for that?
You got to keep that on the down low.
Well, I'm letting
My
that
friend
out.
ran into a Wendy's one time in Panama City, but that was from drinking too much. So. Spent the night in Bay County Jail.
Well, guys, thank you all for joining in on this conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I have to just, one more time, Fit to Serve 1 on Instagram.
Right, yeah.
What about website?
So if you go to my Instagram, I've got a link tree right now that's got all my socials. Working on the website aspect, but all my stuff is, if you go to Instagram, that'll connect you with. Just follow that link tree in my bio. It'll take you to all my stuff currently.
Roger that. So you guys go connect with Evan. Thank him for this episode, for taking the time out of his life and his schedule to come out here and share his testimony with us, his purpose with us, his story with us, so openly and so honestly. It takes a lot of courage to do that, man. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and you are a mature, good example of a person. I want as many people to find out about you as possibly can. So hopefully we can do some work together in the future. I know Evan and I, we were talking over breakfast. It would really be really cool to host an event sometime where we have a private venue, YouTube. You guys can buy some tickets, come out. Evan can do some stand-up comedy. We can do some speaking engagements, some Q&A, eat a good dinner together. That would be a blast, man, to make something like that happen. So I'm going to keep that definitely in the forefront of my mind, because I think there's a big opportunity there. And I cannot wait to continue to follow your journey, Evan, and to see everything come to where it's going to come to, and to see things just continue to infinitely become more powerful, and the story becoming more complete, and all the hundreds of millions of people that you're going to be able to help, that need someone like you doing exactly what you're doing in your own unique way. Very special, man. We enjoyed it. Enough said.